Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Rod, Kimberly Schmidt, Todd Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, John Travolta, JMelds24, Unimento, M, Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Bill, More Books, Canna Bear, Fiber Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealand, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
But they don't even understand the greater context of the begotten and sonship in regard to kingships and ascension and crowning, which did, like you said, happen at the cross / resurrection.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that.
Well, it's the same exact language used with David and Solomon and all of that.
Well, what's begotten means born again, right?
Well, I'll put it to you this way: it doesn't mean born woman necessarily. It can be.
Well, Jesus said, "You must be born again." He said, "That's born of the flesh is flesh, and that's born of the spirit is spirit." He was talking about spiritual things, so you can't be born again of the spirit too, right?
Exactly. So you're begotten of God, right? Or born of God. He who believes that Jesus is the Christ is born of God.
Right. You're
How
recreated.
can a man be born again? Does he get shoved back up his mother's bowels? That's what Nicodemus asked Jesus.
Yep. That's
Jesus was like, dude, bro, come on now. I'm speaking in a metaphor here, bro.
Well, he was talking about spiritual things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of language that is similar, where one is speaking about the corporeal side of life and one is speaking about the spiritual side of life. And a lot of people that create doctrines that become cults confuse the two and try to impose the rules of one upon the other.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. Yeah. Same with
one of the one that's going around right now when it comes to transposing these rules is the physical world behaves in a certain way, right?
Okay.
Physical agents and human agents have certain behaviors and abilities. Therefore, we must parallel what and who God is by the limitations of the creation that's subordinate to him. Otherwise, we have no rational basis on which to understand God. Therefore, God cannot be thus, or God cannot be this. But their entire matrix of interpretation for their conclusion is based on the limits of humans. Like, how can you come to that conclusion?
Yeah, I hear that. Is that like in the sense of like their idea of who God is, and as a result of their idea of who God is, they basically interpret the rest of scriptures based on their idea? And if something doesn't fit that idea, it's the scripture that's wrong and not their idea that's wrong? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah, I run into that a few times.
Now, the hotness right now, of course, in the world, which has always been hotness all the way back to Jesus's life, is the issue of his deity. People will say Jesus can't be deity, right? And he can't be godhood deity because human beings are one agent and one person. Therefore, God must also be the same. It's like, wait a minute, why would God be subordinate to the limits limitations of his creation when creation is contingent upon him. He's extra dimensional. He's a higher order being than we are. He can have qualities and be able to do things that we can't do. That's axiomatic by the definition of God. So why in the world would you parallel God's limitations to humans' limitations? It's retarded.
Good afternoon, guys.
George.
Be a misinterpretation of made in his image, like it's some sort of facsimile and it's got all the flaws.
Yeah.
That
God
was-
has
Good morning.
nose hairs.
Good morning. That was before Adam fell, though. We were
Well, what
created
is
in
God's image? Jesus tells us what God's image is. He's spirit. Man is not just flesh and bone and blood. He's also spirit.
Yeah. Right. That's another segue
That's-
to Gnosticism that we were just talking about, right? Just where they create a God that requires a physical body to exist within a realm that God is not the creator of, but he's an inhabitant of. And they bring him down into the creation, which, by the way, is part of the Ethereum paradigm. It's all Gnostic.
That the letter coming from Laodicea was in fact.
Mic check.
Yeah, we definitely know you're here.
Dude, I'm driving my son to school, and it's a holiday, and he's not even in the car. I'm like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Autopilot. Yeah, I'm on autopilot right now. Like, what the heck? Where am I going? Detour.
What's the sneak attack?
It's out for a drive then, eh?
Well, I have to go to work, but usually I take him to school first. So I'm just like going there.
I
And I'll
got
be
you.
yelling at him, get out of the car already. You're late. For God's sake.
Where are you?
I am in Vermont.
Vermont?
Vermont.
It's flat. It can only be done on
Interesting you said Vermont. I was playing Road Rash 2 for the Sega Genesis, and one of the courses you drive through is Vermont.
Oh, near where I live, near where I used to live, right on my street. It's one of the most famous roads for bikers to come and do their little chicaneries. Because it's nothing but S turns, all like for 5 miles.
That's kind of what that game felt like.
It's like downhill S turns for 5 miles. It's awesome. You could do it in a car too. It's fun.
All right, good stuff. And the third Road Rash game also takes place in the UK, and I found out, oh my goodness, these guys are driving on the wrong side of the road in the UK. I didn't know that. So you gotta. Anyways,
You came to the realization
Anyways.
that you're driving on the wrong side of the road in the States. That's the realization you actually came to.
no. We drive on the right side of the road. You get it?
Ah, good one. Hey, Righteous, can you make room for my brother Chris to get in on Discord? He's trying to get in.
Well,
Thank you.
I'll hop in the voice verify section, and let me switch over to Skype first.
I've got to disappear in a moment to pay a serviceman, but I'll be back in. I don't know when he's going to actually make his presence known, but when he does, I'll disappear. But just for the guys in G+, if there's someone trying to join, going, why aren't I really letting in? That's why. But I'll let you know when I do disappear.
All right.
Because he said there's two waiting.
Is he gonna use his name Chris, or is he gonna come under some other name? Neil?
Yeah. Chris.
What?
Coming in as Chris.
All right, coming in as Chris. Gotcha. All right. As soon as I notice, I'll just I might not even voice verify him. I'll give him a pass, and I'll give him the roles right away. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Since he told me about Flat Earth.
All right.
Yeah, so before the pre-show starts, if 10th man's listening, so basically what me and Righteous were talking about is that flat Earth is a gateway drug to Neo-Socinian pseudo-Gnosticist version of Christianity
Whoa.
for
Whoa,
people
whoa,
who
whoa,
are
whoa,
already
whoa.
Christian.
Hold on. You
What?
can't just rattle off at least 3 words I've never heard before and then get away with just carrying on. Sorry, that's a lot of words that I've never heard before.
But
Do you
this
want
is
to just break
before
those
the
down for me?
pre-show started.
What was the first one?
Neo, new, Socinian, a particular Christian era in which the availability of scripture was made to people who previously didn't have it, and therefore when they got it, they read it without context and just in plain language, and then interpreted it as such and made conclusions. So, for example, the word is an idiom in the culture, but if you just read it, the word became flesh, and you look at the Greek, it says the logos became flesh. The logos became flesh. So you might conclude this means that information, words, literally became flesh, rather than recognizing the logos is just referring to an agent, right? And then you make a whole doctrine out of it, being ignorant of the idiomatic and socio-cultural historical perspective of the language in which it was written to the people in which it was written, because for lack of a better term, you're too stupid to know differently. So that's Neo-Socinian. Out of the Socinian era came a lot of cults, which basically denied many classical Christian tenets. Then you have pseudo-Gnostic, which is obviously, you know what pseudo means, and Gnosticism is essentially denying that Jesus came in the flesh.
Cool. Thank you very
Either
much.
that he had a physical body, or the other version is that he pre-existed his physical body, so he couldn't come in the flesh. He actually was born at the moment he was conceived, right? So the classical Christian doctrine is that Jesus pre-existed his birth,
Even
either
Jesus
ad
said that.
infinitum into eternity. Yeah. Now, the true classical Christian position is that Jesus exists eternally as the uncreated creator, as described in John, that all things that were made by him. Therefore, it excludes him from the class of made things. Therefore, he must be unmade, and therefore must be uncaused in a physical sense or a made sense, and therefore must be eternal by category.
Well, he's self-existing because he's God, and he said, "The glory I had with you, as he's before." Before what? Because he's
Yeah,
talking to the
absolutely.
Father in this earthly agency. Obviously, he says, "I'm the only one that came down from above. Nobody else came down from above with a message. Everything else is from here, men."
Correct.
Right. However, I would caveat that with one thing, that the term existence, this is just a parsing of grammar and language, is that existence means to come out of. And so Jesus can't be self-existing in that sense, because that means he came out of himself. He just is, which is why the name of God, right, that people generally attribute to God, or when he says, what you can tell people that I am, is simply tell them I am that I am. He doesn't tell them I exist. He says, I simply is. I am.
Correct.
I like that.
He's the grounding. He's
Well,
the grounding of all existence, because everything that came out of him, making him the actual only being that possesses the quality of being, or ase,
uh,
which means not reliant on anything else to be.
Right.
agreed 100%. It's in contrast to self-created. No, he didn't create himself. He's always existed. So he's the I am.
But philosophers can take that and turn it into how we exist through our thoughts, i.e. Descartes, when he says, I think, therefore I am.
Right, but he's referencing that his physicality isn't just some dream.
No, I appreciate that, and AI Overlord's point is that there's no existence to be described if you just are, and I get that.
Right, and this is the part where, like, the other view comes in, where you look at yourself as a human, that a quote unquote exists or is created in the image of God. You reflect upon yourself about the nature of the struggle between say existence or being versus after effects of being. And you say to yourself, well, I just think and I am, therefore, right, a bunch of other things that we've talked about previously, the natural conclusion is I am God, right? Because those tenets of logic do follow to the conclusion that I simply am, if you leave out certain other factors. And that's where you get the propensity, in my opinion, for humankind to have this self-deification kind of ideas, like subjective idealism, or eventually we're going to evolve to godhood, or it's a circle of godhood.
Well, if
Which,
you're
by
a
the way,
thing,
some flat earthers
if
do
you're
believe.
gone.
There's prominent flat earther, at least one for certain, who basically said that Jesus attained godhood at a later date. And once you attain godhood, you enter into the eternal state. You then can go back in time and create everything, which, creates like an infinite causal loop, which is what they need for creation to be inside the universe. So the universe, creation, and the creator are within each other rather than the creator being separate.
Yeah, well, anything that's been created is a thing. And Jesus exists before all things, and he created all things. He himself is not created, or else he'd be a thing.
Yeah, how can you attain godhood when you are God?
Well, because they want to do what Satan wanted to do all along, become God. So
Correct.
they take that, whoever this prominent flat earther is saying that, is because he needs that to be the narrative so that he can become a god.
I know who it is. It's Bob
Yeah.
Skiba.
So Neil, I'll give you the verse that answers your question, and it's this. So this is the category of the rich young ruler. He came to Jesus to ask him his questions, and Jesus, knowing that he seeked to justify himself, so started to ask him questions about his fulfillment of the law, or the moral code, or the thing that you would be using to rank up, right? So Jesus knew that this guy was coming. Say, guess what, God? Guess what, Jesus? I'm a good guy. And so then Jesus grilled him and convinced him that he wasn't actually as good as he thought he was.
Well, that's the whole thing with being one with the universe. We're all gods.
Take
Yeah,
that
if you live in
from
a subjective,
Psalm 82.
if you live in a subjective, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just saying they take that from Psalm 82, and they misquote
Right.
scripture
So
when he says, "Have I said you are
absolutely.
gods?"
So yeah, if you think in nature of a subjective idealistic matrix, right, where the creator and the creation are one and the same, and you are the creator, whether in whole or in part, by that logic, then the ultimate moral code is just what you think of yourself, and you're just God experiencing itself, right? So ultimately, nothing you do you're ever actually accountable for. So even in that view, it's like, how do you even rank up in that view? It almost is incoherent on its face. And because of all the incoherencies, I think it's self-evidently false. And that God being an external agent is the most rational conclusion.
Agree.
Well, Jesus made reference to that when he said he's the only one that came down from heaven. There's no, the external. I mean, how would we know unless God revealed himself to us? I mean, we can't be held responsible for something we can never know. So God reveals himself to us. And the way he reveals himself to us is he's got to come into our paradigm. So that's why Jesus came in the form of a man for a short while, made low Lord than the angels. He could have exercised his godly powers any time, but he decided to have a life of a servant and obey the law and fulfill the prophecies.
Warrior.
No, lamb to be slain. He came as a sacrifice. He's coming back as a lion.
Yeah, but that's some warrior stuff he did. The whole cross.
No, that's sacrificial. That's not, he would, if it was warrior, he would have not allowed anyone to
I
put him
couldn't
there.
do that. I'm saying the act itself. I understand it's a sacrifice. Then come on.
No, but it's
We all
love,
know
not
he's the Lamb
warrior.
of God. But
No, it's love, Neil. Neil, I'm trying to tell you, it's not warrior, it's love. It's what had to
Warrior.
happen. Forget it.
Warrior to go to that cross. Of course, he came as the Lamb. Still took warrior type skills to go to that cross. It's God. I lay down my life. Nobody takes it from me. I lay it down. Could be both. Of course, he's the Lamb.
I'm not going to argue with you, Neil. You're not listening. I'm quoting
I hear what you're
scripture.
saying. I hear
Come
what
on.
you're saying.
Come on. That's what the
Come on.
disciples wanted him to do, become a warrior.
No.
Come on.
You're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
Come
It
on.
was
Neil,
not
come
going to come down to take the kingdom and become David. I understand that, Tent. I'm just saying what he displayed on that cross. I mean, come
Love.
on, it takes a lot.
Love,
Yes, love.
sacrifice.
All right, so he's the loving warrior. It still took warrior type effort to go on that cross. Come on,
You're
and
gonna
die the
you're
way
gonna
he
sneak
died.
it in no matter what, aren't you?
Well, hold on. But what gets me is when it says, and they tried to escape the wrath of the Lamb. That's
Yeah.
going to be some sight.
Your day will come, Neil. It's coming.
What's up, y'all?
Hey,
What's
Eli.
up, Eli? I'm getting yelled at by Tent.
No, you're not.
Why are you picking on Neil 10th?
So I'm
Well,
calling
no.
Jesus a warrior for going to the cross.
No, because he brought his brother Chris here. Now we got two Constantinos to deal with. I got to get a head start.
Did he get in yet? Did he get in yet? Because we're at a truck
I
stop.
hope
He's in
so.
the bathroom. He's trying.
it-
I don't think he remembers his signing thing. That's what he's trying to do now.
Is this his
No.
first time around the subject, or besides you talking about it?
No, he's the one that told me about it in 2016, and I thought he
And
was
he
out of his
hasn't
mind.
been on the show.
I know. I can't wait to meet him.
In chat one time, and I timed him out. He started talking about the what do you call it? The what's that Hebrew roots thing? So he's still
Oh.
stuck in that, but he'll come out.
Was that a potato or a radish he was talking about?
What's the deal with that? Hebrew
Well,
roots.
he picks up all the Jewish traditions, and he believes that you got to keep the Sabbath and everything like that. Claimed it's not for salvation. He understands everything, but he thinks you're missing the blessings of God by not keeping, the law. Well,
Is
we
he
are
Jewish
keeping the
or
law.
is he Jewish or Italian?
He's
That's pretty
Italian.
interesting, right? I mean, because he tells you, just like I would tell someone in this debate when I'm speculating, he lets you know, hey, this is not really, something that Scripture says is necessary. However, I think it is, been a blessing in my life. I think that's okay.
I don't know about that because then you get
Well,
twisted.
look,
Because listen to what Ted is going to say
pragmatically-
about that.
Pragmatically,
think,
it
Ted?
behooves people to take a day of
Oh.
rest in a cyclical sense, right? So they don't burn themselves out. Like, of course, you're going to benefit from that. But the problem with benefiting from the blessings that are associated with keeping the law is that you must adopt the law. You must adopt the contract in which those blessings apply. And transversely, not only the blessings, but the curses. And the Bible says that every man who proceedeth not in all things written in the book of the law to do them is under the curse. If you stumble at one point, you're guilty of all. Therefore, it means if you adopt the law in part, you adopt the law in whole. And if you break the law in part, you break the law in whole, and you're under the curse. Therefore, the only rational conclusion that can be reached from any attempt to keep the law is that you are cursed, period.
Correct, and you're
luck.
committing adultery,
Okay.
on the Savior.
Okay. I don't want to get with that.
No.
No,
I-
AI
I-
got it right. You're committing adultery.
You didn't listen to what AI was pointing out. What he's pointing out is that upon trying to adopt the laws, you're self-condemning yourself to be subject to what was the word? Curses? I've forgotten what word you
The
used.
curses, yeah, the
I know what he's
blessings and the
saying.
curses.
How did we miss that? Why you said that?
Either you
you're
missed it or you
adopting the
just
law.
whistled past it then. Let's just put it that way.
What? I mean, curses, smirches. It wasn't that big.
Nah. See, AI broke this down to me before, so I know exactly where he's coming from, and I agree with him 100%. But in essence, you can't listen. You can't be in covenant with Christ and in covenant with the law at the same time. I'm sorry.
Well,
Wait,
that's why one is referred to as the old covenant, the other one is the new covenant.
Exactly. That's the whole thing.
right? But I mean, okay, so you condemn yourself to curses, but you're still saved in the end, right?
I
No,
don't
that's
think
not what
so.
they're saying, Eli.
Well,
Once
if
once
Neil's
you
guy, if Neil's brother says that, well, I don't do this for salvation, he understands that, he has to. I mean, I don't know, man.
is he Jewish or is he Italian? I want to know that first.
He's Italian. That's my whole thing. I'm like, you're not a Jew.
All right. So, yeah, you could celebrate ceremonies that were once done if you like. But what do they do with it? What they do with it is say if you eat bacon, you're going to go to hell.
Yeah, or you're sinning.
But you are still saved, Eli. Just have to liken it a bit like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You may have a golden ticket, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get flushed down the furnace.
And listen, what do you call this? Because he told me, he said, yeah, I told you about flat Earth, and you listened to me, and now you're not going to listen to me on this. I'm like, no, flat Earth is a reality. I mean, just because you open my eyes to flat Earth, that don't mean everything you tell me is correct.
Okay, perfect.
Because
Dale,
you're wrong
stop
here.
right there. Stop right there, because I want that salient point to not be missed about what we were talking about earlier. So Elijah can get it, is that the flat Earth is being used as a gateway drug to those philosophies about Christianity to take people away from any form of classical Christianity down a retrograde anti-missionary stance that's anti-Christ and anti-salvation. And let me tell you this, friends, in the research that I've done, this is all rooted in the post-temple destruction, neo-Pharisaical, Talmudic, Zionist, elitist order, where they believe that the world will be made right once the law is imposed on the entire world, in which such laws will revert to theocratically the Noahide laws, in which worship of Jesus is punishable by beheading. So rest assured, friends, the end result of all of this nonsense is that Christians will be killed. That's their goal.
Scary.
Now, don't forget that the Bible predicts
thing.
as well that the Bible predicts as well that Christians will suffer this type of persecution for the cause of the cross or for not denying Jesus.
Well, if you read the New Testament, Jesus was accused of breaking the law by false religious leaders of the day who have grown to love their power over the people and their phylacteries and the term rabbi. They enjoyed the public spaces. And so they always accuse Jesus of breaking the law. And Jesus says, no, I came to fulfill them all. And then I could offer the new covenant.
Right, I've got to nip out. I'm really sorry. If someone tries to join G+, just tell them they've got to join Discord till I get back. If I'm live for the Late Show Tough, that's just how it's going to be.
No problem.
Deal. Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize that the flat earth, the heliocentric, and all of these things are part of a synthesis paradigm that's been being played on humanity since its inception to steer the Overton window towards essentially false beliefs about God. It never was intended to hide God in total, though a lot of flat earthers have said that in the past, that the premise of heliocentrism is to remove God. It's not. It's to ultimately alter the perception of God for the masses so that they believe they've arrived at the proper conclusion, but really have been hoodwinked the entire time. And yes, all of these things that have played out, all the cults, all of these things going all the way back to the post-temple destruction, right, and the exceptions of the Catholic Church and all of these things, right, they're all intended with an antichrist agenda. And many, many flat earthers and truthers are falling for it like gullible fish in a barrel.
That's very interesting because you have so many people coming to flat earth that all of a sudden say, hey, we were lied to about this, this, and the other. And then all of a sudden they're open to believing in some deity. Unbeknownst to what you're saying, they're going to be led down a whole different route, and it won't be the deity that they need to know. It'll be the false deity.
Yep. And the false paradigm
go
is
on.
being perfected. The false paradigm is being perfected by law. All religions except classical Christianity, justification is by works or faith. Not faith. Works or effort or tangible actions or prescribing to a particular way of being. Whereas classical Christianity, justification is by faith. No, by grace,
alone.
Through faith alone, in Christ alone. It's the excluded truth claim that excludes all other religions. And because of that, most people will actually tell you that all religions are true except classical Christianity. It's the only one that's false. And that should send alarm bells off to people. It's very odd. So adopting Christianity right after you're coming to truth and then telling yourself that you've just adopted a unique set of principles and laws in which Christ wasn't an actual effectuator, he was just an exemplar, which is known as example theory, where Christ's life and death was just to prove to us an example of how to keep the law. All as you are is back in a law-based religion. You haven't received the free gift of grace.
Yeah, that's why they no, he's not the way. He's the way sure, so that we can do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is when I first became a Christian. I was running into all these different religions, and I had just come out of a religion a few years before, which I came out on my own, saying, I know there's a God, but he's not in that building, which was Catholicism. And so hearing the name of Jesus and God, but not knowing him all those years. So as I started reading the Bible, I realized Jesus separated himself from everything that's in the religious order these days. And as I started studying, I realized that all of the cults and false religious systems have a few things in common. One is to deny either the deity of Jesus Christ, and the other is to salvation is through faith and works, but not faith alone, and Jesus, God in human form, doing the work for us by faith alone. So they change who Jesus is, and they change how you get saved. And they add books, or they reinterpret what the Bible already says.
Yeah, so now don't get me wrong, a lot of them do have what appears to be a benevolent sense of intention, which is this. It's like, well, if salvation is by grace, right, through faith alone, then that means that people can sin, right? Or people will sin. Transversely, it's true that people sin in general. But the problem is that Jesus Christ solved the problem of sin at the cross. He did all the work that's all going to be ever be done about it, and it's handled. So God handled sin in total for humanity, and it's all going to come to conclusion at the end of times for humanity in the realm in which we are in. It's not our responsibility to conquer sin and death. Jesus conquered sin and death at the cross for us on our behalf. So this campaign that, oh, we got to stop people from sinning, and if we preach to them grace, they're going to sin. Okay, fair. People will sin. Don't get me wrong. And you, the self-righteous, going out there preaching, are also sinning. So everybody's sinning. You're not going to save the world by manipulating the gospel to prevent people from doing this act or that act, because Jesus said, even if you think things, you're doing it. You're just as guilty. So when you condemn somebody else to say, oh, I don't murder, but Jesus said, oh, but you look down on your brother with derisive words, you're just as guilty.
Yeah, well, let's put that in context.
God's standard is so imaginably high that the idea that you're living a perfect life and you look back on yourself and say, because I don't eat pork and I don't do this or that, I'm somehow better, is foolishness.
Yeah, well, it's very clear in the Bible that you get a new heart and you're transformed, and you have a justification is instant because of what Jesus did based on what you just said. Sanctification is the process of you still in the human body sinning, but you're being sanctified through the new creation and the new heart you have. So people see a change in you. They see that you're repenting. And why are you repenting? Why are you not doing the things you used to do on the carefree level? Well, because I want to please my holy God, and those things are sinful. Well, so you're going to live a sinless life? No, I'm going to struggle until the end, but I'm going to do my best to obey the one who saved me. So that's the sanctification process. And that's why you go on the hill, and you don't hide your light. And it says right after that, show them your good works. Well, obviously, I'm going to do good works to show I'm saved because I got a new heart, not to get saved by good works, because I can't get saved by good works. I can only get saved by his work. And then we got glorification, which is when we're perfected with our new body, which will be the same as Jesus. And that's at our resurrection. So the whole point is you got this process after being saved where people are saying, well, you're holier than thou. No, I'm a sinner just like you. And in fact, only sinners apply, because to get saved, you got to be a sinner. And I am one.
Well, like, that's a good point you made there, which I want to speak to Elijah, because Elijah has, aspersions about security. So the Bible speaks about predestination, and it doesn't necessarily speak about it in the sense of who will or won't be saved. That's an aside. What I'm talking about is it says that God predestines us to be conformed to the image of Christ, and whom he did call, right? He predestined to be sanctified, and whom he did predestine to be sanctified, he predestined to be glorified, right? So once you're on the track and you've entered into God's plan, your destiny is glorification with Christ, sealed by the Holy Spirit. So no, these people that want to preach fear that you can lose your salvation because you ate pork one day, or because you said F the Holy Spirit one day, they don't understand that the salvation is secured by God's power and promises, in which he asserts, no one can thwart my purposes. No one. Not no one. Because I'm God. And when I say something and I purpose myself to do something, it's going to be done, and you can trust me. Which is why you have to trust him, which is why it's by faith. You must trust him.
Well, it can't be by works. So that leaves us out. And it says it's impossible to please God without faith. And it was accounted to Abraham's faith was accounted for his salvation. And so people get obedience to God's word wrong, because they think that's keeping the law, that saves you. When that just glorifies God, because you want to live a holy life because he is holy. We are to imitate Christ, not be Christ. We're not going to go from sin to perfection while we're still in this body of flesh. So we imitate Christ by doing good works, by pleasing him, by forgiving others, by helping people, because we weren't that way before. We didn't have a heart like that. So God is saying, imitate my son. But obviously, to get saved, there's nothing I could do. It's Christ and Christ alone. That's why he says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. So he's exclusive. He didn't say other religions work with my message. No, I'm the only way. No one came from above but me. And if we're going to be contacted by the Creator, he's going to have to break into our world, our paradigm, because we can't break into his.
Which is what C.S. Lewis wrote when he was investigating various religions. He said, as you investigate them, right, in the myriad of truth claims, you come upon an exclusive claim that excludes all others, and you have to reconcile what you're going to do with it.
Yeah, well said.
All right, I'm going to get some coffees.
Who's that trying to say something?
No, I was asking. I said, what's that?
What's what?
An expansion on what AI just said.
We said a lot. Like what?
Just now, the last thing he said.
Give me one more.
He said he's going to get a coffee.
Are you fucking?
That was cruel, Neil.
That was good. All right. Forget it then.
Hey, listen, my brother's in here. He's under football preaching.
What's up, brother? Real
Welcome,
quick.
Chris.
So let's I just wanted to like switch gears by saying that that's why creation is so important. Like, I mean, it just is what it is, actually. Like, it just is what it is. Either this place made itself, or or nothing made it. It's just here, or something placed it, right? So it's like this is the other half of why people can't accept that there's one God and perhaps one religion, specifically because there's only one truth. Now, we can all bicker and fight on like whose God is what, this, that, and the third, but the bottom line is everyone should understand that there is only one up, only one down, only one, a specific amount of air that you need to breathe with a specific mixture of uh, different things, or you will die. Certain things are certain, like the sun is going to come around every day. Sometimes it gets cloud. Like these are things that we know. But if you think this shit just happens, then you don't understand that all of this is possible because someone made it that way or something made it that way. The
Eli, are you
fact that
trying
I
to say
don't
there's
wake
a
up
creator?
looking like someone else, or the fact that I don't wake up, with like just like limbs not working for just no random reason. The fact that things are pretty the way they are on a I'm in this game and this game works as is kind of deal. It's like that in itself is like perfection. Yeah, sometimes people die, sometimes people get sick, but at the same time, most of the time that people are not living in a way that is healthy for them. So it's like, if you can't accept that everything around you couldn't have just happened, out of nowhere, then you could probably accept that there's one religion because there's one truth. It's just hard for people to.
Eli, are you familiar with Romans chapter 1 in the New Testament?
What does it say?
Let me just read a few verses. I'll start with verse 16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. Therefore, God gave them up to the lusts of their heart, to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the creator, who's blessed forever. Amen.
Yo,
Love that scripture.
that I gotta copy that down.
I'll
And
send it to you.
what's crazy is this, right? I've been talking all week about how people try to find ways to say this is why I don't like the Bible. I was like, but none of us really know it. Like we all hate the part that our, parents, unfortunately, and the people around us and everybody at church and all of it. Like that's what we don't like. But 99% of that has nothing to do with the Bible anyway. So it's like, number one, I'm just like not trying to hate on anything I don't really know. Like, but that verse right there, because it's in the Bible, for whatever reason, someone will miss the message. The message being I don't care if you're Greek. I don't care if you're this. I don't care if you're that. You know, this is the law. It's obvious because of creation and everything you're able to perceive since you're born into this world. No man is separate from that experience. And you can't even say thank you. I mean, quite often, whoever you think I am, you're cursing me. And because your heart is turned that way and you worship other things, worship yourself, worship this, worship that, this is going to reflect in these ways in your life. And it's like, what the fuck? I mean, I can see the seeds of the people who, you know, don't consider this. The people that have decided to worship other things. Instead, I don't worship anything but just the truth. That's pretty much all I have to do. It doesn't come with an image. It doesn't come with doesn't really come with much. I, and it's just for me that this book seems to be speaking truth. It just aligns with what I already know. I'm not even trying to catch it.
Interesting you say that, because what did Jesus say? I am the truth and life.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, Neil.
Main word was sit down
One
without
of you is causing
excuse.
feedback. Hold on. One of you in G Plus is causing feedback. Go on, Neil.
That'd be me.
Well, you can't cause feedback yourself. It's got to go through someone else. Anyway, just as long as everyone else is on mute. Go ahead, Neil.
I was just saying, it says without excuse.
I tell a lie. It is actually Neil causing his own feedback.
Yeah, my brother had it on speaker. It's off now. It says there without excuse.
Oh, you have got a second party in the car who's listening to it. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, that's why. That makes sense. That's
So
fine.
I won't be talking today. I'll be on mute.
Hey everyone.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Nathan.
I think sorry.
Real quick, Brian. Nathan, I got a short day, so I'll be skipping out. I have a review video for you if you want to do it.
Is it Time is an Illusion?
Yeah, it's short.
I did actually
You
promise
don't want to do the
several.
rebuttal?
Well, I promised several people I'd cover. So I said
Oh,
to
okay,
Brian
so
that
John-
I'd cover. Hold on. I said I'd cover AI, which we'll talk about. I think we'll open with that. We may not do anything with it, Brian. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
It's up to you. I don't mind.
And then Divergent Droid had a suggestion as well. But as this one is literally in front of me right now, it's probably what we'll end up doing. I hope no one takes offense.
John had one as well that he wanted to put. So
Okay, what was yours, John?
You got a response from someone that you did a response to. Have you seen that?
Yeah, doing responses to responses about responses gets a bit convoluted. Did he leave my link?
I was thinking.
That's the only thing I was interested in.
Well, I didn't want to watch it in case you wanted to review it. I figured it was more of a sit down with your popcorn and eat and laugh kind of thing, more than a review video.
We got the skinny on it. Somebody did give us a lowdown on what the content was, and I did do. It was even in the title that we responded to his response, without listening to it, because somebody summarised it, what the argument was in rebuttal from him. So it does actually have a response already, but we can go. We can go through it. Might be worth a laugh. Flat Earth Debate live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by the Adam Meakin, Eli, Neil, Brian's Logic, Refracted Curvature, 10th Man Rising, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Morning, good morning.
Hello.
I've no idea how much my intro actually made it to the live audience. It's like there was at least a minute and a half delay before it actually connected, so I don't think we got much of my intro, but that's okay. That's how life goes sometimes. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curve.
Well, Dave McKeegan, at present, is supposed to be supporting that claim. That guy, Dave McKeegan. Yeah, he's claiming that the world record long distance photograph, which was 275 miles from one mountain to another, proves the globe. But he doesn't need to deal with the geometric horizon that would have to be 117 miles away from the observer.
What a clown.
So, yeah, according to him, he can just make up stuff that isn't real about the sextant as a way of avoiding proving that the geometric horizon exists.
When you say
and he's pumping this out to his audience.
Break it down a little bit further. What do you mean making stuff up about the sextant? You mean he's talking nonsense about the sextant he doesn't understand?
Yeah, he's literally making stuff up on the spot to do with the sextant. Literally, in comments to me.
I have an example.
All right.
He says that the sextant is a globe tool, the tool that utilizes a straight baseline. He says that is a globe tool.
Well, he said much worse to me today. Today he said, but he said so much worse. Because I keep asking him for the evidence for this geometric horizon that he needs to claim all this refraction that he needs to make any claim about the long distance photograph. And all he wants to do is make stuff up about sextants. He won't support his geometric horizon claim. But he'll make stuff, literally, and I mean making stuff up to his audience.
That's okay.
I mean,
it does seem like a trend.
Hello.
Hi, Owen. It does seem like a trend that if you're the biggest numpty globe-believing clown, anti-flat earther, and moreover, a heretic against your own globe belief, you'll be put to the front of the list in terms of YouTube algorithm. So in many ways, it doesn't disappoint me that the people who are promoted, this is the newest incarnation of a Simon Dan equivalent. Well, what is he? Well, he's just as dumb as Simon Dan. That's no bad thing.
If the
Simon Dan's marker. Go on, sorry.
Maybe, but you know what I'm getting at. Go on. I think Arwen had something he wanted to actually interject with. Go on, Arwen. Clearly not. Go ahead, 10th.
Yeah, if the sextant is a globe tool, then you would be using it from the surface that's curved. But the sextant is an angle measuring device, and it needs a straight baseline. So in their nautical almanac, all the measurements are occurring from the equatorial plane. So they purposely cut the globe that's curved in half to get a tangent plane. And they not only do that, but they draw a tangent plane on the curved surface at the eye level and call that the sensible horizon, which is a plane and a straight baseline. And then they use their part of their body that touches the surface of the earth as a tangent point and put another tangent line or plane there. Plane. So you got two tangent planes showing a parallel. And then they got the actual one where the measurement's being derived from, which is the center of the earth. But the sextant has never made the trip to the center of the earth. It's got to be done from a curved surface, and it can't work from a curved surface. So
I mean, that's
It's-
very good.
it's all-
You've summarised celestial navigation beautifully in terms of the process in regards to how a globe would utilise it, right? The centre of a equatorial plane denotes or depicted as being at the centre of the sphere Earth, right? That's the plane that you'll use this angle measuring device with. That's all it is. I mean, yes, you have exceptionally summarised how it'll be used, but what is it? Well, he's saying it's a globe tool from what I've just surmised, from what you've told me, Brian. No, it's
Well,
an
yeah,
angle
he's-
measuring tool.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing he said to me, one of the last things he said to me in a comment, just literally within 10 minutes ago, is the sextant doesn't know if it's on the sea or not.
Sorry, the sextant just measures angles. That's all it does.
Yeah, he's just literally making stuff up. That's what he's doing.
Right, but this
pumping
is.
it out to his audience.
I know you want to get into the wrangled angle with this Dave McKeegan guy, and I know we've covered him, but this was initially, and I'm going to stick by my guns when I said this, and I'm going to reiterate it now. This is why I don't want to get into the wrangle dangle with the clown shows that get promoted to the head of the algorithm on YouTube, because they are akin to your Simon Dan, your Dave McKeegan, these numpties. We shouldn't be dealing at this level. The type of level that says, it's a globe tool. What are you talking about? It's an angle measuring tool. When you tell us it doesn't know what surface it's on, no, it measures an angle, though. It can't do that on a globe. So it absolutely, without question, cannot work off a curved surface. That's how it functions as an angle measuring device. That's two straight lines meeting at a vertex. If you don't understand what an angle is, or if you don't understand what a triangle is, then there's no hope for you. If you think that these vertices are being intersected by bent lines, then you don't know what an angle is. You're stupid. That's not the level that we should be dealing with. It's moronic.
But Nathan,
No, I
don't
agree.
you know,
I don't want
you
to.
know that all surveyors all used curved triangles?
No, they didn't. They begged
Remember?
the question
Yeah.
of a curved Earth after they measured angles, including
No,
elevation angles.
I don't want to talk about. I'm not looking to have a conversation about that guy. I just had to throw that in there because
fair
it was
enough.
so ridiculous. Because I just happened to be talking about the geometric horizon and with someone who was claiming it without showing up with any proof. Someone who was well known on YouTube. That's
No,
all.
I get that, but well
Yeah,
known
but
on
if
YouTube.
you're
this is
measuring
the
an
bit-
angle and the degrees don't add up to 180, well, then it has to be a curved triangle, right? I mean, it's not like you could have done the measurement
Well, there aren't
wrong.
any curved triangles, right? Violates its own definition. It's nonsense. Anyway, just back to Brian with this Dave McKeegan guy. No, Dave McKeegan doesn't garner the respect of the masses through his excruciating attention to detail, as Quantum Eraser would put it, because he doesn't have any. He's just a clown. He's spouting nonsense because he thinks that just because he's got a vague idea that he's on a globe because he's been indoctrinated with it and the world is behind him in that faith, that he knows better than we do. Now, he doesn't. Now, explaining that it's frustrating to have to tell some numpty who's telling you how a sextant's a globe tool, that it's an angle measuring tool and that requires a horizontal baseline because it's a straight line. You shouldn't and you won't need to dumb yourself down to this level if you only address the people that are actually appealing to the masses. Because my suspicion is YouTube intentionally put the dumbest globe proponent forward to be promoted. That's how it seems. That's how it seemed when Dan was promoting. Like, my God, you're going to put the thickest person you can find to promote the globe. Like, it's someone who we will be able to quote as saying you and your reference frames are ruined when it's a fundamental premise of Coriolis effect. Yeah, that's the kind of numpty that they're putting to the front of the queue. Good. Keep it up, YouTube. If you've got to promote the, approved content, then make a mockery of it. All right, it's approved that we both experience and don't experience Coriolis adrift. Okay, get the guy who's going to say that to the front of the queue then. If we're not allowed to just promote everything, that would be my attitude if I was the head of the YouTube algorithm. There's been a change of the guard recently. Not that it'll make any difference to us, but they've recently lost their CEO and it's the head of the person that was algorithmically in charge is now head of the YouTube machine. Like I say, I don't think this will make any difference. But the point is, if you were under the cosh of the US Senate or whichever body they were in front of, and they told you, no, you need to be telling your audience on YouTube, let's call them your audience, that Earth's a sphere. That's how it is. And you need to shut down the people who say it's flat. We've got, understood rhetoric that you need to peddle. So what are you going to do if you're in that awkward position? What if you're the guy that was the one that's opened the floodgates on the flat earth in the first place on YouTube? What if you're the one being told, you need to close these floodgates and we need to promote the preferred content? Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to put the most concise, double-speaking clown to the head of the queue on YouTube when you've got Neil deGrasse Tyson and all the mainstream rhetoric already there? What have you got left to actually be able to influence? Well, you've got the numpties. So who do you promote out of those? Promote the most clueless clown there is, who claims that tools have reference to sphere surfaces when they're angle measuring tools. That's the kind of numpty you would promote. I'm just speculating, but that's the way I view it because I'm a glass half full kind of guy.
Well, I'll back up a little bit. Just one, I make this quick, Ted.
Yeah, go on.
I saw one of the comments on his comment thread underneath the video I saw, and one of the comments was from this guy. I can't remember the proper name now, but he was around this arena a while ago. So he's a fundie, right? Now his comment, even on like on a comment on my channel or your channel, it might get 20 likes if it was lucky off of other Globers, and that'd be a lot of likes for a comment to get in this arena on one of our channels. Even with all the Globers coming there, 20 likes. His comment, I couldn't comment underneath it for some reason. Every time I tried to comment, it wouldn't allow me. YouTube wouldn't allow me.
He's blocked
his
you,
comment had
which means he's blocked you.
Maybe that was what it is. Because his comment had over, I think, between 7,000 and 8,000 likes. The same comment that would get maybe, if he was lucky, 20 likes on one of our channels.
Look, I realise.
Well,
I understand that a lot of people are so lazy that they won't even watch the video, even if they're in it. You know, you can pull out a quote of words they've said and they'll deny that they've even said them, claim that you've said them, when it's in a video with them saying it. That's the kind of stupidity level that we're dealing with when it comes to these numpties.
Is it possible for us to reverse this? I guess it's a form of censorship, and demand that YouTube start putting flat Earth tramp stamps on all celestial navigation videos?
I tell you, no, because I don't think we would do ourselves a disservice to think that this is just the fault of YouTube. No, it's the fault of, again, the lazy people who will just click a like on a video because of how it's titled and who's in it rather than the content. And the whole thing is, you know, there's two ways to look at this. It's like all of the people who are here to troll and distract us anyway, or just the normie person, and then the more refined people that are trying to find their way to information that they can't get easily from just typing something in a word search. Like, they eventually find us. And I think that all that matters is when there's one extra subscriber. It's like, congratulations, man, and thank you. I appreciate you for being here, but congratulations to making it here. Not many people do. I think that's just the road that we have, but that's the road in anything good. We just need to keep cultivating that and not focus on all the negativity out there.
No, I was. Hold on a sec. I wasn't
hippie
talking about negativity. I was just saying that if you're going to apply a standard, it has to be applied fairly and evenly.
Maybe. I don't know, saying, look, you've tied us up in shackles. And over there, they're doing, tie them up in shackles too. I don't know. I don't really like that.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, you know, we're saying the same things that the celestial navigation people are saying. 10th is quoting them, but they haven't got the tramp stamp. I'm not saying punish them. I'm just saying, you know, that tramp stamp needs to be applied evenly.
Maybe. I don't know.
So,
either way, there is a remedy to this. The remedy to this is sharing the show. It's always been the same remedy ever since this started a couple of 3 years ago. Well, yeah, that's why I plead for people to share the show. Yeah, same goes with the support thing. You know, at some point the lights do go out if you don't get enough financial support from the people who are watching. and I'm very, very, very privileged in that regard, that on the occasions that I've stuck my hand out, it's been rewarded with people saying, yeah, we support you, we want you to keep the lights on, sometimes in a very literal way. So those are the ways to remedy it. You know, support what you like, or unfortunately it does genuinely go away, and share the show. That's all it takes. So if you're like, oh God, the censorship, you're just one guy connected to at least 100 others on Facebook, or one girl connected to at least probably 300. But you know what I'm getting at. That one share makes a massive amount of difference. Now, there's people who regularly share the show, and when they don't, because they're not as interested in whatever show they're watching, then that shows in my statistics. I know which ones people share because I can see it in the stats. But typically, if we have a good show, people will be more likely to share it. But that's the remedy, you know, because people still will come, and I can see from my statistics that they do come from other avenues. And some of them are YouTube based. You know, they are finding me on what YouTube called the homepage search, whatever that means. But that means I'm appearing in front of people to a certain extent. And, you know, be grateful for small mercies is my attitude. You know, YouTube have done me very well, considering I've been doing this full time for quite some time and supporting a family doing it. Mostly down to the people, not down to YouTube, I'll be honest. And honest about it, it's not down to the ad revenue, it's down to the super chatters and the PayPalers and the Patreons who I shout out every single show. You know, they're the most critical people to keep me in this chair, talking about Flat Earth and responding to the videos. But that's why each time we're doing these videos, like the response that we're going to do any second now, I am going to, and I do encourage people to go to the video and let them know how you got there. You know, give them a like and say, yeah, I found my way to this video because Nathan Oakley 1980 responded to it. You know, give them a little compliment. Love your stuff. Check it out. Gave you a like. But yeah, so in this case, check out Astrum, if I'm saying it right, hopefully so, as we're going to be covering this in a few moments when we've got the last remarks from the panel. And it's time does not exist. Let me explain with a graph. So we'll cover this in a minute. It's only a short video suggested by 10th Man. 16 minutes, that's not short. Right, wrap up.
No, it's...
Go on.
Hold on,
Hang on, Neil. I got to go. I need to finish a statement before I go because I can't stay for the whole show. We're fortunate enough to have Adam Meekin, a mathematician, as a panel member, but for what I'm about to say now, it's not necessary because in celestial navigation, there's only 0 and 90 and anything in between that. There isn't anything else. So it's an angle measuring device from 0 to 90 when you're referencing the horizon and the star above the horizon. So when you're under the star directly, that's your zenith, and the star just happens to be directly above you. So you're 90 to the star. But you can't say I'm 90 to the star with just one line. What's the other line that makes it a 90? It's a perpendicular. It's the 0. So the baseline always accompanies any angle with the sextant. So if you got a 50-degree angle of the sun over the horizon, you subtract that from 90. That leaves you 40. 40 times 60 nautical miles is 2,400 nautical miles. The zenith of the sun is to the zenith of the observer. There are no diverging zeniths when the only thing you're using is 0 to 90. As Brian has pointed out, to be on a globe, you would have to have diverging zeniths. And celestial navigation doesn't work with diverging zeniths. So it's sewn up, it's over. The sextant is not a globe tool. The sextant could only work from 0 to 90. Shh, don't say 90.
This super chat is to help you stay in your chair. Gravity won't help, but more steak and gravy would, says Godzilla37. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat and all of your support. Really do appreciate it.
Sorry about that.
Go on, Neil.
Is John saying that life is not fair? Is that what I'm hearing at a refracted curvature?
What?
What?
Were you saying life is not fair?
No, I'm saying that if a standard's being applied, then it should be applied evenly. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Morning, guys.
Hey, Chocolate. Right, we're going to cover this video, so feel free to pipe up if you're in Discord as well. Same thing applies.
I'm excited to say
that's loud.
I've made a book. Stay tuned until the end of the video for more about that. What is time? In this channel, we've
Concept.
talked a lot about time. As black holes warp space around them, we've
No. See, warping space is a concept of time being a dimension. Nope. Time's not a dimension. That's just nonsense. So we're already into the nonsense.
We've learned that time slows down.
No. No, time's not like a merry-go-round or a car or an aeroplane. It doesn't speed up and slow down. Right? Time is a concept. It's the way we describe things like entropy. But it isn't something that you can travel through. It's not something that speeds up. You haven't got a DeLorean. You can't slow down time.
We've discovered the time-influencing effects of gravity and...
Nope. God, this is frustrating. We're how long into this video? 24 seconds. No, time has no influence. Descriptions of things, concepts, don't have physical influence over other things.
Gee, that didn't take long, did it?
25 seconds of this video so far, Neil.
James Webb Telescope can peer through time to the...
No. In your conceptions of heliocentrism, you have orbital motions and the fabric of space-time viewed through your telescope. Now, based on the concept that you have a distance travelled for light in Einstein's notions, then you have essentially a time machine when you look through a telescope. Because what are you looking at? Well, you're looking at things that have travelled a long distance through a fourth dimension. That's light. And therefore, the light that's reaching us is actually the light from a very long time ago. No, that's merely a story within your heliocentric maths. That does not make your telescope a time machine. This is absolutely absurd.
The distant past by taking...
No, not distant past. No, they're just lights in the sky. They've been ascribed distances through Kepler and Huygens, but that doesn't mean that they are. They're just lights.
Taking advantage of the fixed speed of light.
Sorry, fixed speed of light? So we've got no proof of this two-way speed of light because it's a concept that's been derived from bending space-time and Einstein's notions of a fabric that you think we can slow down? No, I'm afraid not.
All this makes sense,
Go
on, Brian.
I was going to say, speed of light, we have proof of the claim. That it's the claim speed of light, two-way speed of light, and the proof is that it is an average calculation based on the average distance between the globe and its heliocentric sun over 12 months. I can show the whole lot with calculation.
It's not a measurement.
No, it's not a measurement. Just calculation.
Within a fantasy of heliocentrism.
Yeah, it all starts and ends with the horizon being geometric or not being geometric.
Of course it does. Meanwhile, we debunked the geometric physical limitation to your view at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as claimed to be measured by Al-Biruni after measuring elevation angle measurements to derive the height off a flat plane of the mountain that he needed to bend the ground he just took as flat to get the height, to give him R, to give us this heliocentric motion, to give us Kepler's orbital motions, to give us Huygens' assumptions that R derived by Al-Biruni is the same size as Venus, a light in the sky, to give us the distance after getting the scaling values. Then, and only then, do we have these distances for the sun, for its light, and the lights that have been scaled from Kepler with their distances, giving you a time machine for a telescope. What a clown. Know your origin stories to know what nonsense you spout.
So far. But what actually is time?
Concept. Covered it in the first 3 seconds of your video.
You can't taste it, touch it, or feel it.
That's because it's conceptual.
Yet time has an unstoppable influence on us.
No, time has no influence on anything at all. It's a description of a concept. Your concepts don't influence things. Yet show me how freedom influences people. Oh, look at that freedom dragging someone away. No, it doesn't work like that. It's a concept.
And it's pushing us forward.
They're not pushing us. It's not a force either.
Whether we like it or not.
No, whether we describe it or not.
Doesn't something that impacts everything
doesn't impact anything. We're describing something.
Do deserve some additional understanding? I'm Alex McColgan, and you...
This might be a little bit pedantic, but when he says it's pushing you forward, which direction is time traveling again?
If you're talking about entropy, then time is the arrow of existence. It's only going in one direction.
I don't know. Which direction is existence going?
It involves me turning your question into a reification fallacy. If I say forward, it hasn't got legs. Whilst I'm travelling through time now, am I moving forward? Just sat here.
It lacks orthogonality. It has no direction.
Correct. But yeah, Einstein's described it as a dimension. Orthogonality, that's a great word.
You're watching Astrum, and while this is an area that scientists have many theories about,
Oh, do they? See, if they had theories, it would be based on scientific experimentation after deriving a hypothesis, after experiencing a phenomena in nature that you wanted to know the cause of. So you supposed it as a researcher, varied it, see if it validated your alternative hypothesis in an experiment, then you'd have a theory. The science for this is non-existent because it isn't science. It's maths. It's concepts. It's not physics.
I'd like to share with you today one model that might help you understand
Model? Sounds like we're launching into a reification fallacy.
this mysterious concept that is
Yeah, concept. You got that bit right.
ticking all around us.
Ticking? No. This concept doesn't tick.
By the end of this video, we are going to have a possible explanation for why time slows down as
With science, explanations come with an empirical method behind them. That's what explanations are in science. You know, you explain the cause of an effect you've observed. That's what science does. Not possible explanation, empirical outcome. So why is it that you've just garnished your bullshit with the words of science, only to tell us that you might have a possible explanation? No, you've got an empirical explanation if you've done science. Clearly you don't know what science is, or you'd know that it has an empirical outcome attached to the end of the process. You know, before the theory.
velocity increases, and why shapes warp when undergoing velocities close to the speed of light.
Right, you can't travel at the speed of light. There is no speed of light. This nonsense time-travelling telescope notion that you've got is absolutely and utterly absurd, and certainly doesn't warp objects. You're certainly not going to be showing us that.
This video is a collaboration with my brother based on
No, I just want to see warping objects. Show me that. Show me time warping objects. Show me time!
unrecognized scientific theory.
This is recognise what theory? This isn't going to have scientific theory attached to it. You're telling me that I've got to recognise this, dickhead. This isn't science.
Where we have taken scientific concepts and
Concepts? No, science doesn't deal in concepts. It deals in cause and effect. Not concepts, that's what you've got with your time. But what you think by saying science deals with concepts, that makes your reification of this time dimension conjured up by Einstein somehow science? Wrong. Science establishes the cause of a phenomena you've observed in nature by varying that which you assume causes the effect. That's a hypothesis actualization, aka experiment, so that you can form a theory. That's science.
and combined them into something you may not have seen before.
Wow, sounds like bullshit. Definitely not science.
But before we get to that,
But before we get to the total bullshit,
we have to begin with one foundational idea.
a foundational idea? Like, I don't like to build foundations upon ideas. Houses fall down that way. Yeah? This metaphor is falling apart quicker than your house would. I'm not going to build anything on an idea. That's the problem with concepts. They've got no physicality to build on.
Time is actually another dimension.
No, this has just been conjured in the mind's eye of Einstein. I already covered this. It's not a dimension. Show me it. Show me the dimension of time.
Now, before you double...
Whoa. Is the chalkboard clock and this pocket watch a dimension? I think you've got a bit mad, my friend. I think you've just told your audience that time's a dimension and now you're showing them clocks. Yeah? That's not a dimension. Hello?
check that you haven't logged into some sci-fi channel by mistake.
No, this is sci-fi. See, science establishes cause and effect by way of systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis. Science fiction gives you an idea as a foundation. Yeah, so this is science fiction. When you tell your audience that you're showing them a dimension, then you show them a pocket watch.
Let's discuss what I mean by dimensions.
Why? We know what a dimension is. Length, breadth, depth, we're all familiar.
While in popular culture, different dimensions are often described as parallel worlds that
Are they? Sorry? In popular culture, we describe here ever parallel worlds? No, there are no parallel worlds. What the hell are you babbling about? You think there's another world running side by side with me and my world? Au contraire. No, this is just a stupid notion developed off the back of Einstein's and stupid notions of fourth dimensions that don't exist. Yeah, we've got all sorts of crazy, batshit insane people who tell us about 11th dimensions. It's just nonsense. We haven't got a parallel universe running alongside us.
Are very similar to ours.
Really? Do you want to show us beyond this CGI rendering?
It's subtly different. In this context, when we
This is a load of hexagons moving up and down. Are you batshit insane? Do you think this is another dimension? Do you think your CGI of a globe that we don't live on was showing us another dimension? You haven't shown us time as a dimension yet. These hexagons aren't cutting it, mate. Who picked this, by the way? Great video.
talk of different dimensions, we are referring to the dimensions of space, as in
Length, breadth, depth that we're all familiar with.
dimensional space, or 3D space, which may be far more familiar to you.
What, than one you haven't shown us yet? More familiar than the pocket watch of time dimensions? Not familiar with that one at all. You didn't show it us.
This is by no means trivial, though. 3D space is all around you. It is the around you.
Profound.
And is very relevant to our topic.
Really? Given that it's space-time that you're not going to be showing us, I would say that it's devoid of any relevance. It's been hijacked and then incorporated to an Einsteinian concept of an extra dimension we never experienced called time. So no, it's got no connection to length, breadth and depth that we're all very familiar with.
Let's begin by making sure we understand the 3Ds and the relationships between them before we add the fourth D.
Sorry, we're going to add the fourth dimension. We're all very familiar with length, breadth and depth. You don't need to go through that. Let's see how much time he dedicates to length, breadth and depth and how familiar we are with things that are associated with that. And then how long he shows us time for. We'll see the demonstration of the dimension that we're unfamiliar with versus the one that we are.
Broadly speaking, 3D or three-dimensional space simply refers to space that can be measured in three different perpendicular directions.
Profound.
The perpendicular nature of these dimensions is important, but we'll get to that later. Three-dimensional space is usually described as having height, width, and depth, and they all have 90-degree angles between them.
Okay, this is fascinating. I'd prefer you got onto your dimension of time, the unfamiliarity therein. Yeah, we'd like to see that.
Simply put, objects like us that exist in 3D space can move left and right, up and down, and forwards and backwards.
Really? Wow, thank you so much.
We are comfortable with this kind of space.
So why have you shown a Kepler-based orbital motion around a sun in a CGI image after demonstrating quite cohesively what length, breadth and depth are, and then telling us that we're familiar with this space? No, my friend. No, this has got an assumption of orbital motion. You know, all these bodies falling around the sun. No, I don't buy that in the slightest. I don't think that we are falling around the sun. It's absolutely absurd. But after describing something that's actually real, you're going to throw this up?
Using this as our basis...
No, this isn't our basis. This is a heliocentric nonsense notion that has come from Kepler. Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. I thought you were stopping to leave me talk. Yeah, this is a total contradiction, as they explain time within their globe model by the globe rotating. So that extra little bit of rotation each day is what gives them a 24-hour solar noon to solar noon. That is time. That is what the concept of time is based upon. So then he's going to talk about that. Then he's going to show Kepler's analemma, right? And then he's going to go back to talking about, fourth dimension of space-time. Then go back to, then show Kepler's analemma, and then go on to talk about fourth dimension of space-time again, where the claim is that time moves at a different rate the further you are from the globe Earth, let's just say, as an example, within our model. But time on the globe Earth is based around a rotation that's a little bit more than sidereal, so that gives them a 24-hour solar noon to solar noon. That is where time comes from within their model. That's how they explain time, because that's all time is. The concept is based on solar noon to solar noon, 24-hour day. So where are they off to with their time moving at different rates when you leave the surface, and it moves faster or a different rate as you rise into the sky. It has nothing to do with that. Even within their own model, time is based off of a 24-hour solar day. Nothing to do with anything else. So where did Einstein actually go to with all this? What did he have to just completely ignore? Because it seems that Einstein just completely ignored a load of things that were in heliocentrism prior to him turning up to come up with this nonsense.
Love it. So Godzilla's gifted a load of memberships, also just after Ramsey had joined as a penguin. So missed out there, but thank you for joining, Ramsey. Really appreciate it. And then immediately after, literally within seconds, all of them had gone. So yeah, great. Thank you very much for gifting all those memberships out. I love that feature, and I love how many members it brings to the Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show as soon as it's uploaded. So thank you very much indeed for gifting those memberships, and welcome. Check out the Uncut and After Show when it comes out immediately after it's been finished recording. And yes, indeed, Brian.
Can I get in for a second, Nathan? I know I've been here up to 1 million years.
Hey, Paul. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Brian. I was just thinking, I'm just trying to process, and obviously I don't hear, a few times I've been on here, I didn't hear any Globers, but is measurement in general a concept? For example, I'm measuring point A to point B, like I'm measuring a cabinet, you know, and it is a concept, but it's also a convention, right? Which means it's something it's in relationship to something else, right? I'm measuring from one point to another point. And of course, at that time, Jesse comes down here. Hold on, I'll be right back. Hold on a second.
I think I suspect where you're going with this. And now, the gallery.
Well, it becomes a convention the moment you tie that concept to reality, right? That would be
right. Okay, now I got a moment. Sorry, I may only have another few minutes, so I'm going to try to get this quick. So even time is a measurement of duration, right? So it is a concept too. You can say the 24-hour day is occurring, you know, from when the sun moves from solar noon, as Brian was saying, to come back to solar noon again. You're measuring 2 points of duration. Okay, they obviously decided to start to scream, and I was fine until I got on here. This is why I don't come on very much anymore. So time, in a sense, in that frame, it is a convention we all agree upon at some level, and it's a measurement of a duration or change that is occurring, and it is a convention because we can agree upon it. We can agree upon solar noon, or we can agree upon even some other means. We can even come up with a whole new way of measuring as long as we agree upon it. So now, and we do those things to try to quantify the world around us. It doesn't mean those things are the world, but we're trying to measure and see what's going on in the world. So in that sense, time, there is something that we're measuring, a duration when it comes to time.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
what we're discussing in this regard in response to this video isn't necessarily us not agreeing to a certain convention. I wear a watch. I've got nothing against the convention being used within the convention. That's fine.
Right.
But that's not what's happening.
And I actually got...
Go on.
No, I get you. They reify the convention, making it that's reality. And I get where you're going.
Precisely. It's working outside of the convention. Instead of the convention describing something that occurs in physical reality, you take the convention and describe how you interpret lights in the sky are physically occurring in reality based on the convention. No, you use the convention for what it's designed to do within the convention. So if you're using it, as Brian describes, from solar noon to solar noon as a duration, then that's fine. That's a convention that we can all agree upon. And you can see its origins, and you can see how it directly relates to your everyday life. You're working within the convention. Nobody's going to have an issue. At the moment you say... Go on.
I'm sorry. I would say I got a Glober, and I'm not going to name who it is, but admit that this contraction that they describe in relativity is just a visual effect. The thing is not actually shrinking. So what they have to say then, it's just that maybe something visual you're seeing, but that the time is not truly slowing down, or time is not speeding up, and the thing is not truly shrinking. It's just a visual effect that you're measuring. So, but that doesn't mean that things actually occurring that way. And I actually got a Glober to admit that. So
Sure. But when you
point of-
use
point of-
a bastardization of a convention, in this case time, to explain why that is happening with the light in the sky, again, you're working outside of the convention. And when you're ascribing cause to it, you're stepping into an arena that has an empirical method attached to it. So if you want to tell me what caused that to occur with the light in the sky, then you're talking about cause and effect reasoning. So you can put it through the scientific method. We've got a phenomena to study. You just got to suppose the cause, vary it, put it through the empirical method, do an experiment. Beyond that, I'm not going to take your reification of time, working outside of its convention, to give me a description of how lights are actually falling around each other because Kepler's giving you the maths for it. Anybody else?
I have a question about time speeding up and slowing down.
Hold on. Where's my DeLorean? We're actually filming this next week. We're on the Bahamas now. You may not realize. Go ahead, John.
Right, but the speed of time, whether it slows down or speeds up, what is speed?
The speed of the distance over the time.
It's a rate, not speed, is it? It's just a rate.
It's the speed of the speed, John. It's the speed of the speed.
It's a rate, isn't it?
And how do you define rate? As speed?
But that's the convention, isn't it? As described by Brian earlier. So the rate of that convention. Time's a convention because it is just invented within itself, but distances, and I had to drop out there. The way in which we quantify any distance may be considered a convention. The distance in it of itself isn't a convention, it's reality. How we describe and quantify that distance is up to us within the convention. But that distance, irrespective of how we describe it, whether we call it centimeters, inches, and even though they'll all be different, the distance is actually the same, just the way in which we describe it. Reality is the same.
So the rate of the distance?
Yes, the rate of the distance. That's correct.
Yeah.
That's
the rate of the speed, which is the rate over time. So it's the rate of the distance over time of the time.
It's just begging for reification. It's begging for reification at that point.
Oh, I hate to do this, Nathan. You're not going to like it.
Go
Sorry.
on.
This is going to be a sparse one. Okay, I have a laser, and I brought this up before. I have a laser device, that can measure distance. Okay, I can move it, and the distance changes. So you got the distance in the formula. What aspect in that formula is the time? So what does it measure? Okay, this is what happens. See, this is what happens. I'm making bacon, and they want bacon. Anyway, so
you can still. Are you asking me how you'd qualify duration in this question? Is that your question? How would you qualify the duration?
If light does not have a speed, which you said earlier, but you have a distance, and you can adjust the distance, what's going on in the laser thing? What's the other aspect that's measuring?
It's a good question. It's the same question I would ask about the delayed choice quantum eraser, because there's a qualification within it that's got a time-based qualification. The distance increases, therefore increasing the time of the journey from one to the next when you've got the prediction already, or the outcome already shown on one plate. Well, according to the methodology of the experiment, you've got a further distance to travel for the light that's been separated, right? In the beam splitter or whatever they call it. Well, therefore, so if time isn't actually consequential to the light, how can you say that it's got a delayed choice because it's got a longer distance? Well, isn't that delaying the amount of time it takes? Therefore, you've got a certain some form or another, the light has got a journey to take. What a mind bender. Is that, maybe that's not where you're going, but that's how I take what you were saying as a question for me.
That's what I'm saying is that this. I'm just saying is that if there's not a rate of speed, even back to what of the light, then distance could not be factored. You know what I mean? So, like if I go a constant rate of speed in my vehicle, knowing that rate of speed, I can determine how far I can go in that rate of speed. So that's the same equation. So there has to be a rate of whatever you want to determine. If you want to be a rate of oscillation, a rate of whatever, but there is a rate between point of the one laser into the where it hits the wall. There has to be some rate involved in that.
But that's
Indeed.
well, hold on. That's fine. That's fine. I'm not saying you can't use speed because time's a concept, right? I'm saying that when you talk about the speed of time itself is non sequitur. And then how are you measuring the time in the laser? Or are you just measuring return angles?
Raise your hands in the chat if this just went over your pay grade.
Well, the laser thing I have, and I'll take a picture of it, there's no angle involved necessarily. Here, I'll take a picture of it and I'll send it to you. I use it all the time. Where'd it go? Where did it go? That's probably at my toolbox. I'll be right back. I'll post the picture in Skype.
Where's this going? I'm going to ask John because Paul's just suggested he's got to step away. So what Paul's saying is, how can you qualify the distance if you've got, with light, something that's occurring instantly? How do you qualify a time? No, he said distance, didn't he? How do you qualify a distance factor in that? I think that's
Who the
his
heck
question.
is Paul?
Well, what if instead of it's actually measuring time, like is assumed in this, it's measuring a change in the light on the return signal. So that's what's giving you your distances.
But based on how far it's traveled, right? Over a period.
Right. The further it travels, the more the beam will separate.
I'm going to have to take some time to wrap my head around that. Okay, we're going to get back to this video because we've gone way off the reservation with this, but it is a fascinating discussion, and we haven't actually gone off the reservation as it was directly linked to the conversation about this time nonsense in Einstein's rhetoric that's going to get snapped back into the room for every member of the audience. So, yeah, I'm going to suggest there's been a bit of a gap in between. If you feel so inclined, go and let this guy know. Oh, I found your wonderful material via Nathan Oakley 1980, who happened to do a response video. Love your stuff, left you a like. So there's a link going up now in the live stream public chat. So you can go and, like I say, just let them know. Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Love your work. And this channel is called Astrum. So yeah, check it out. And we will... I'm pressing the wrong button. There we go. Right, we're going to get crack on back with this video.
It becomes much easier to imagine what we mean by 2D space and even 1D space. To move from one space to another, all we need to do is remove or add an extra dimension of measurement or movement that must be a 90-degree angle from all previously existing angles. So, 2D objects move in a plane that's bounded by the x and y directions, or the x and z directions, or the y and z directions, but not all three at once. 1D objects can only move either along x or y or z.
When do we get to the fourth dimension?
Imagine a person who lived in such a 1D world.
Nope, not possible.
Their whole existence would be found either moving one way or the other.
This sounds familiar. Sounds like you watched the 11th Dimension guy.
All of reality would exist either to the left or to the right of them, and would appear as a singular dot. They could not move or see in...
Is this going to be the exact same journey that the 11th Dimension guy took us on? Here's a one dimension. Here's how it folds into the second dimension. Therefore, you can infer that that folds into the third dimension, which in turn, drum roll, will fold into the fourth dimension. Is that what he's going to do?
Any of the other directions, and probably could not even comprehend such directions as even existing. Photons whizzing by them would only...
Whoa. So if we imagine a world where we're on a line, then you're saying we couldn't comprehend that there was a second and third dimension. Now, I can't comprehend being a line. Yeah, to understand this reification step backwards that you're giving us, where if we were only in a one-dimensional sense, we wouldn't even comprehend how a second dimension could exist. So us being in a three-dimensional world where I won't show you a fourth-dimensional existence just means that you can't experience it because you're only existing... Yeah, what a load of crap. We've already seen your magic trick before you've even got a few minutes into it.
only be visible if they entered the singular line that
No, so far, I think it was 2.5 minutes in that I said, how long will he spend till he gets to the actual time bit? So far, what, 1 minute 40-ish of not showing us the fourth dimension?
Is
was a
anything
1D.
in reality, Nathan, anything other than encompassing all three dimensions?
No.
I don't think about it.
In
The
physics,
only
no.
place I can limit myself is to go into mathematics, into equations where I can express stuff as 1, 2-dimensional. But in reality, that doesn't exist. Just like the fourth dimension, it's not existing in reality. So, not having the fourth, and try and draw an analogy between strapping on an imaginary one, and the only way you can justify that is to remove one dimension from the reality experience and pretend you're a 2D or 1D object, so that you can have this majesty of understanding how the extra dimension relates to your reality. That's what's being switcherooed here.
Yes.
So you have empathy to feel you're brilliant. The reality is, everything exists in 3 dimensions. The fourth's not relevant. It doesn't exist. And you can never express anything in reality in less than 3. Even a dot is ultimately 3-dimensional, isn't it? In reality.
On a page, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's 3-dimensional. Right. But in this instance, what we're doing is we're going on a little reification journey through the conceptual descriptions of each dimension so that you can be trained how to follow this path of reification, making that which is described into something concrete and real. So you can't exist in a 1-dimensional line. But if I can take you on the journey of thinking like you're existing in the 1-dimensional line and not being able to even comprehend that second dimension that you don't exist in, then you'll have a lot easier time of doing it when I say that that's the process for getting to the 4th dimension that I won't show you.
The person's whole area of existence. Now, adding extra directions of movement is what's needed to move things up from 1D to 2D to 3D.
Yeah, we have actually seen this journey before, so we've gone on this exact same path with a channel called the 11th Dimension, I believe. So that's where this guy's going. He's probably got it from the same exact source. Oh, we've got non-skippable lads, that's all. That's why I've got the small gap. We're back in the room.
We can predict what we need to do if we were to jump to 4D. However, here we hit a snag. While it's easy to draw a line that's perfectly perpendicular to a single other line, or to draw another line on top of those lines that is perpendicular to the 2 previous lines, how would we draw a 4th line that's perpendicular to all 3?
Yeah, it would be one of the other dimensions, no matter which line you drew. There is no 4th dimension. So we've hit a problem! Alright, you see, science offers empirical outcomes that benefit humanity by advancing our understanding of things so we can develop technology from the science. Not so we can go, oh, we've hit a problem! Yeah, this isn't science.
Surely such a thing is
It's a
impossible.
bit like this vector stuff. You know, we had those 4th dimensional transfers that they were trying to do the other day, that stupid maths. This is the same thing. And the way he's explained it there, x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, where is his t-axis? Which direction is it going? It isn't. You've fulfilled all your directional things. There's no other direction. So we now are totally into the realm of fantasy, where this other dimension, and this is what I was looking in these vectors, this is all that other vector does, is it tweaks the other values, not through themselves, but through another function. And this is what you're now being asked to imagine. It's just a completely, and it's an impossibility, because you're being asked to imagine a new one of those lines in a different direction that's not already covered. It is just total fantasy. So the only way you can hold it together is to make your 4th dimension and then draw an imaginary relationship between that one and the ones you can see. Sorry,
Well,
bit of a ramble,
within
but
3D
it's-
space, such a thing is impossible. The best we can.
It does seem like every time we summarise why this won't work, he then goes on to affirm it and describe how it's impossible or a big problem. So he just summarised what you just said, Adam. Just do that again. Just listen to what he says.
It's perpendicular to all 3. Surely such a thing is impossible. Well, within 3D space, such a thing is impossible.
See?
Well, at least he's
The
honest
best-
Yeah.
about the way he's trying to mug you off. I
Yeah.
am going to mug you off with something that's impossible. Now believe it.
What we can do is draw approximations. For instance, it's possible to draw an approximation of a 3D shape on 2D paper by doing something like this. These lines are all two-dimensional, but we look at this and our brain recognizes that this is a picture of a 3D shape.
Wow.
So, in the same way, we could probably do something similar to what a 4D object
Go on
might
then.
look like using
No, that's still just a 3D object, my friend, drawn on a two-dimensional flat surface to give you the impression of three-dimensionality. There's no fourth dimension in this. It's just a more complex shape.
No, and it's also a false analogy. Okay, he's given there. So this is standard metaphysics that he's talking here. Now, what he's tried to say before is he's trying to comprehend, right? So I'm now going to be this two-dimensional being that's trying to comprehend. You just put it back on screen, that picture. If I'm a two-dimensional being, what he's tried to say is when we as three-dimensional beings look at this picture of a cube, we can interpret it as, no, you're a two-dimensional being. All you see there is lines crossing over each other. You cannot see that and say, oh, that looks like a 3D thing, something I've never seen or experienced in my life. You can't have that experience to give it an equivalence if you've only had two-dimensional experience. Conversely, if we're 3D beings, how can we draw an analogy to a fourth thing that isn't for us to experience to say it even looks like it? So like a transgender, I feel like a woman. How can you know you feel like a woman? You've never been a woman to know you are one, and that's how it feels. And it's the same in this dimensional thing.
Don't oppress me.
just 3D lines. Mathematicians have attempted to do this, although their results tend to be a little confusing. Although this is mathematically sound as a basis for a 4D object.
Sorry, I thought this was science. Mathematically sound? I thought we were dealing with physics. The physical. No, this is a debate about... That's not a debate, it's just nonsense storytelling that we're doing. Go on.
It's also not 4D. Look what he's done now. You've got that cuboid thing turning itself inside out. Well, is that what time is? Turning yourself, your 3 dimensions inside out. This is, see what I mean? I was saying you can't look up dimensionally and tell me what it is. You have no concept of what it is because you've got no experience of it. At best, it passes you by, which is as with time.
Well, I think
you
I wanna
can't
get back in on this.
describe it like he's attempting to here.
Go on, Paul.
Is what he
I think
says
this is
mathematically.
Sean said chocolate. Go on,
Sorry.
I said, this is where I've gotten it. I mean, I've not been on this, your guys' Discord. I've been on another one because later in the day I have time. So, but actually I got talking to Glober, and I think this is where they can describe it mathematically, which dimensionally is a mathematical grid, or a graph that you put on a piece of paper. And because you can describe it mathematically in a certain way, that's what makes it a dimension. That doesn't mean that it's actually truly a dimension, but they're describing it mathematically that way. But mathematics is a concept like language to describe the world, but that doesn't mean the words I use are the same thing. So I think that I could see why this discussion is in play, because the mathematics becomes, because I describe it that way, that's the way it is, because I describe it that way. If that makes any sense.
With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who joined as a member, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. And of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
what a name! What a lovely name!
But then you can do in mathematics, right?
Yeah, but you can't
Is
validate
distinguish
it.
because before he said something was I don't remember. I can't. I turned it on and he was saying something was impossible. I was like, okay, it's impossible, but later, 2 minutes later, it's mathematically sound. Yeah, because you can do impossible shit in mathematics.
Exactly. You know what's
That's
funny?
cool.
You know what's funny? 2 seconds into the video, and the guy was already off base with time.
Yeah, yeah, he snatched Stone Wig off like immediately, 24 seconds in, like 3 times.
Got people in chat talking about the ISS. What are we going? Chocolate? Are we going backwards here? I explained to him
What,
5 times. So you've seen a light in the sky.
The
Okay.
International Swimming Station.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I said to him. Do you think there's people in there? Obviously, you're not understanding that you can't have gas pressure out of a container. Therefore, everything you see up there is fake. The vacuum of space is fake.
Careful. They
Is
do
Darwin
see a
there?
light in the sky, though, don't they? And
I said they see a light in the sky.
They have had multiple explanations for what they claim that light in the sky is. So they keep
We've got a
rebadging
new
it.
one.
It's ISS
I
currently.
agree.
It's been Skylab. It's been what was the other one? Skylab.
Nathan, do you
Mir?
think there's
Is it
people in
Mir?
there?
Hold on, Neil. I'm in the middle of a thought. Is it? They've had Skylab, Mir, International Space Station. Is there a fourth one?
Supposedly, didn't China supposedly have one that supposedly failed and fell out of the sky, like Chang Yi? I don't know. I got to look into that again. But
Someone shot the balloons that were holding it up.
Well, in chat, the guy's saying, I've tracked the ISS. I know it's there. I seen it's there. Therefore, globe.
Therefore, globe. Therefore, men on high wire in space.
in khakis.
This is yet to be confirmed. I was watching Arwen's show yesterday. And apparently Whitsitt's claiming the ISS to be real. It's actually up there, floating, but it's held up with, you can imagine what it's held up with.
Ether.
You got it, baby.
Oh, my God, no. I told you they were ballers.
They're not
Brian, we're
ballers,
right
they're just-
again.
What they're doing is right. Listen, Neil. You get to this subject, and there's a good chunk of people who go, "Holy crap, we don't know anything about it. I need answers." Now, one of the things that might trouble you is the ISS. You go, "What the hell is that then?" Now I go, "I don't know. Another light in the sky." It's one that they desperately need to give you a story about. That's what I do know. I mean, I don't know what it is. Fascinating though it may be. What's that? It looks a bit like what they say it is. Yeah, so what? They've got men underwater pretending to be in a sky vacuum in an orbital motion. I can debunk all of that. Therefore, everything they say about what they present on an obvious stage isn't taking place on the light in the sky. Do I have to explain what the light in the sky is? No. Am I particularly troubled by the fact that there's a light in the sky? No, not really. But I could be deeply concerned with it and then offer up an explanation for it. Well, there is still men in the little tin can being held up by ether. Oh, why?
Wow.
Have you proven that? Why are you offering an explanation for it? I don't feel compelled, because it undoes my heliocentric rhetoric, to offer an explanation for that light in the sky. I don't know what it is. It's a light. What, you got this blurry image? that proves it's men in a tin can? Because you've got a P900 footage of something blurry that's got a vague H shape to it? All right, that's fascinating. No, what, you can pull out some details from that and say, look how these details I've pulled out match exactly to what NASA say they've got in the light in the sky when they're on a stage, obviously on trapeze. No, they're still on harnesses. They're not actually falling around Earth in an orbital motion. That's why they're on high wire. They wouldn't need to be on high wire, hello? But I just know that that's all fake because they're not in a sky vacuum falling around a sphere. I don't care what it is. I mean, it's interesting.
That's exactly what I said. Exactly what you said is what I said in chat.
Some people are deeply troubled by it, Neil. They really need to know the answers to these things. What is the sky then? I don't know. Well, you tell me immediately. I'm sorry, I'm not going to replace your guru.
Seems like Wits it is.
Yeah, well, give him money. Also, give me money. But seriously. Look, people want
Can I
that. He's
just
catering to
sorry.
him, right? We go, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you. Yes, it's a shame we've lost all of the answers that we thought we once had. I'm not going to offer them because I just don't know. I don't know what the sun is. I don't know what the moon is. Would it be nice if I told you that it's floating around on ether to alleviate your pain? Yes, it would. But I'm not going to do that. Sorry.
Go, Brian.
Yeah, just Nathan, just if you don't mind, just something I want to share here. I wanted to get it in before the end of the show because it was connected to that video, but we can use it again. Yeah, up at the top here is 92,955, 807.27. That is the amount of miles in one astronomical unit. One astronomical unit is the average distance between a globe Earth and its heliocentric sun over a 12-month period. There's 63,241.1 AU in one light year. 63,241.1 AU divided by 8,760 hours, which is the amount of hours in 1 year, is 7.2193, etc., etc. Then, if we multiply then the 92,955,807.27 by which is the amount of miles in 1 AU by 7.2193, blah blah blah, we get 671,076,198.98 miles per hour, which is the claimed two-way speed of light calculation. It's all a back calculation from an average distance between the globe Earth and its heliocentric sun. Now I could do this another way as well, but this is just the way they came to be today. But it works out the same all the time. Just an average. That's all that is. It's never been anything else. They don't have a clue what the speed of light is. They just know how to calculate an average based on their original belief. That's all it is. Thank you.
I have to ask the question. Can I get in? Earth, major. What's that word again? Hello.
I can hear you, Paul. It's just
Paul.
where Nathan is.
How you been, brother?
Okay. You said you don't know the speed of light. Okay, let's say that may be true. You said we only have an average. Just to state we only have an average, which means there's an average between the return, the go and coming back return speed. Could you be more accurate to say we don't know the exact speed of light, but we can use an average?
The average,
and the average is a convention that we use to measure things.
Paul, listen to me a second. The average is based on the distance between a globe Earth, the average distance between the globe Earth and its heliocentric sun over a 12-month period. It's all based on Kepler's analemma. So the whole speed of light calculation, two-way speed calculation, is all derived, all back calculated from the pre-assumption of a globe Earth that has a changing orbit or offset elliptical orbit around the heliocentric sun over a 12-month period. So if the Earth is not a globe, which is proven by the black swan, the fact that the horizon is not geometric means the whole claim of a 671 million miles per hour two-way speed of light calculation all goes out the window.
It's all debunked, right,
so
Brian?
I'm going to go back to
it all ends.
Hold on
it all
a second.
ends with the black swan.
Okay, I'm not even talking. I mean, that may everything you said may be correct. Let's say I'll give that all to you. I'm going to go back to my laser, and I dropped a picture in Skype. I think I put it in Mass Debaters. Okay, explain to me what's going on there. Because if you go read the manual on how this thing is made and used, it is the speed of light that they're using, not an angle. And even in that device that I dropped in there, the angle, that measuring device would have to be so sensitive, because if I'm moving barely an inch or a centimeter, I can do it in centimeters. That is the angle. The angle measurement would be so minute that you probably, with that level of device, could not do it. Doesn't have the capability of doing that. So
Well,
there
it
has
does
to be
if it's
something
like
else that's being used.
Go on, Adam. Adam went through this before.
I think I understand the point you're making. And the answer is I don't know. I think the things I would point out, what Brian said there, I'll try and quote Rupert Sheldrake. So up until the 70s, the way in which we calculated the speed of light was to use interferometry, different parts of the world, and then an average would be taken to determine the exact number for that year. And it's not until 1983 that the way in which they solved this problem, because we're supposed to have a constant here, yet we've not got a constant. It's changing. So in 83, the way around this is to redefine the definition of a meter. Now, a meter used to be 1/40,000th of 90 degrees. And that's how it was derived from astronomy. But in 1983, the meter was redefined in the International System of Units via the speed of light. So instead of it being a distance, it's defined via the speed of light, which fixes the problem. So now the speed of light, the meter is defined as the distance traveled by light in a vacuum in 299 millionth of a second, roughly. And that fixes the problem that this constant isn't constant whenever we try to measure it. Now, if you look at your laser devices, they will state a margin of error. I think it was 1/8 of an inch over 50 foot.
Hold on a second, Brian. I want to respond to that, because I don't disagree, and I've actually heard arguments that saying the speed of light may not be constant. It could be speeding up, it could be slowing down, there could be other factors that we don't determine, so we don't know. So there is a convention that they said the speed of light is X as a convention, and you're right that it could there is a margin of error, and I'm not saying that there's not in that, but I mean, for the purposes of our discussion, like my laser thing that I posted, it's precise enough that builders use it. My wife could use it in her job. I can use it, and I actually used it out of my garage trying to make sure my tub is big enough to fit in the space I wanted. So within that accuracy, it works. Okay. But for it to even work, and this is the argument I'm making, there has to be a rate of the light. It may not be constant. No. We may not have an exact amount, but there has to be some rate or it will not work. That's the argument.
No, that's where you put in the non sequitur argument that it wouldn't be able to measure the angle, but it could measure the time. Like, you've not shown that.
Yeah.
Okay. What is? How do you determine if I move a distance over a certain rate? Can they not determine that? Like if I know the revolutions or something, I can determine the distance of something by knowing one aspect of the equation. So you're saying I don't know, I can determine the distance, but I don't know the rate of a laser. So it works. We don't know how it works, but it works. So that thing that we don't know about, it's just that's what you're saying.
We do have, Paul, this is the nuance of the claim, isn't it? Speed of light or the two-way speed of light. This thing is working on the two-way speed of light, which we're happy with. It's fairly, I've just faulted it in its minute accuracy. It's not a constant, but for measuring, when you divide in by 299,792,458, small variances in those numbers ain't going to yield a difference in a tape measure in centimeters, is it? It's going to be virtually the same, those variances. But we accept that it's not a constant, and we accept that the way in which this device is working is on the two-way speed of light, a return journey, which we've got lots of data on. But the claim is
Okay,
the
well, see,
speed of
that's
light is they're going to fault it and
Well, no,
draw.
Well, see,
I don't know if
Adam
I'm
just said
accepting
it.
that yet.
He just said it. The
Yeah, I
two-way
know.
speed of light.
Yeah, I'm about to address it
Go
too.
ahead.
Show me where it measures the time in the device. Don't just assume it. Show me.
I can only state
Okay,
I don't need that as an argument to defend what I've just said. I don't need to attack the technology. I can take that. I'm happy for the claim of the technology and how it works to be correct. But the point I'm stating is it's on the two-way speed of light, which is well defined, behaves within certain limits. It's not a constant as claimed, but it's certainly constant enough for us to get this accuracy on the two-way speed of light. So I'm happy for it to be able to do the timing.
If you look on screen there now, because I knew when I looked at your thing, Paul, what was going on with it. There was two lenses. One sends out the beam, and the other one registers it as a return signal. So it's a calculation based on a return. It's triangulation. If you look here, it's actually triangulation. So when you move a little bit, you're changing that triangle a little bit. So it's trigonometry is what they're actually doing. What they're doing is they're measuring it through time. That's what they're doing. So they're just working off of, but the calculation I gave a few minutes ago, the 671 million miles per hour calculation, that is what they're working off. All it has, like if you think that unit can't do that, I mean, your computer is doing 20,000 times that all the time. That'd be easy for that.
Now, I'm not talking
to do that.
I'm not disputing that it can calculate. I'm not disputing that, and I'm not saying it doesn't. But I'm actually, the thing that I said about the problem with the instrument is you're saying that it's measuring the angle. Okay. Well, for that to be true within the device, like if I can move that thing can register just a centimeter or a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch or a 16th of an inch. It can measure that, and I just barely move. That means that device would have to be sensitive enough to measure that angle difference. But if the way light works, which means it's more, when it hits the wall, it scatters out, then it would have to somehow know the angle from the dot or whatever. I mean, you just have to get into the technicality of that. But when you just hold on.
He ain't got the benefit of
Hold
seeing
on.
that, Brian.
Okay. But I mean, the thing is, when you read the owner's manual, the way it's described how it works, it doesn't work that way. So go ahead.
Yeah, but if you look at your rangefinder, look at the pictures you posted into Skype, and I'll show you something. See the one where you're looking straight at it when it's like where the lens is pointed at you. See that little black lens to the left of that, or to the right of it if you're looking at the photograph. That is the triangulation. It comes out the lens, the big lens, it bounces off, and then it's registered by the small lens, and that is the triangulation. It's a triangle that's being made between the big lens and the registering of the small lens. That's what it's doing. So when you move a little bit, it's just changing. It's triangulation and it's trigonometry and time.
Can you go? I'm going to ask you to back your source. Can you go?
He's got it on
show to
screen
me
now.
the owner manufacturer on how that's what they say they do with how it's manufactured and how it's designed.
He's got it on screen now. He posted it in Skype.
Do what?
It's on screen now, and he posted it in Skype.
Okay. Well, I mean, we got that specific one. I can't see. Okay, is it in Skype? Okay.
So
is that for the specific one,
the use
or
of
something
both
else?
trigonometry and if you look at that, and I'm working off the top of my head here. What's going to happen is the base length will always be the same. The distance to the object is going to move, and that distance will therefore change the. It's going to be a isosceles triangle, isn't it? So that's going to change the side lengths, and therefore the angles at the bottom, and it's that side length that you're going to want to calculate from the distance or the ping rate. So you are technically looking at that. You're going to be measuring time, but the time component will also have a function in terms of distance, and therefore side length to calculate
Well, can I
the actual
can I
distance.
quote from?
Look, the distance from the laser to the object, and then the object to the sensor creates that triangle. So I think you're both right.
Can I quote from the very thing that he cited? First paragraph.
Yeah, because
Those
I'm just saying,
beams
looking
bounce
at that,
off.
that's how you'd have
Hold
to
on, hold on.
calculate. I'm not.
Hold on. Good, Paul.
Okay, those beams bounce off distant objects, and the rangefinder high-speed clock measures the total time it took from when the beams left the unit until they returned. His own citation debunks the argument.
Yeah,
But you
but
said it
they're
wasn't
working
using
off a
angles.
pre-assumption.
Yeah,
understand?
like hold
I'll
on.
show you
I
now
just
in
want to
You
say,
said it was
is
angles. You said it was
it
angles and
measuring
trigonometry.
time or is
This
it
is not what
measuring
it says.
entropic? All right, never mind. Go ahead.
This is his own citation. You said it was angles and trigonometry. From his own citation, it says there's a clock internally in the rangefinder that measures the time it leaves, the time it returns. That's his own
No,
citation says
this
that.
is dealing with you saying that it's not using angles, but it's clearly showing it using angles. I'm
Did
not
you read the
accepting the time part
citation?
of it, but
Did you read the citation? Did you read the first, second paragraph in the
yes,
citation, the second sentence?
yes.
Yeah, I know
What did it
about that,
say?
Paul. I know about that. It's
But
okay.
you denied
I've
that
read
it
that
used
many times.
angles. You denied it used angles. Like you said that.
It
does not
doesn't. It
use
says
angles.
it's a clock. It says it. It uses a
Keep
clock.
reading.
There's no angles involved in
Keep
a clock.
Keep
Yeah,
reading.
as I just explained, there's no angles involved in a clock. But once you've used the clock to get your two side lengths for your triangle, yeah, you're going to have to use angles in the side lengths to calculate the distance, the actual. So you take that triangle up, split it into two, so you've got two right-angled triangles, and it's that length, the split line, that you're wanting to measure, isn't it? You're not measuring from the sensor to the object. You're not measuring from the object to the emitter. You're measuring from the emitter to the object to the sensor. That forms a triangle, which if you split down the middle to form two right-angle triangles with equal hypotenuse lengths, it's that adjacent that you're trying to calculate, which is the actual distance from the sensor to the object. So you need the time to calculate the return distance. From the return distance, you need the distance to me between the sensor and the emitter. That then forms the base of your triangle. You've got the rest of the information that you can then calculate what the actual distance will be.
Okay, can you go through the rest of that citation and show me where that's true?
Hold on, Brian.
I am. I'm looking.
Hold on.
I read the citation. I read the citation.
Yeah, but the citation was very simple. It didn't go into great detail. It sounds like the back of a packet description. It's not gone. And by the way, once we've taken the time and we've got that accurately, this is what we do to give you your distance. It doesn't give that detail. But what it does describe correctly is that the thing it's measuring is the time of the rebound. That doesn't mean no calculation needs to be done after that to calculate the distance. It doesn't calculate distance, it calculates rebound time, remember.
Paul, look into Master B at what I posted. That's a basic of a laser rangefinder. It's triangulation and time. It's trigonometry and time. And the time part is based on their 671,076,000 miles per hour claim. That's what it's all based on, which is all based on the average distance between a globe Earth and its heliocentric sun, or on a globe Earth of a particular size, I must say, over a 12-month period.
Well, here's the thing. This is where you guys are conflating the two. You're taking one that might work that way and conflate it to a different one that works completely differently.
But I'm not conflating anything. I'm showing exactly what I'm stating. They're not measuring, they're calculating.
This is a completely different citation.
Hold on, no.
And that might work and that might be true.
Paul, just one sec. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, well, the point I'm making is that what I'm showing is exactly what I stated was happening. They're triangulating. It's trigonometry with time. And the time calculation they're using is 671 million miles per hour. A rate over time. That's what they're doing. And that's exactly what's going on.
Is this a gap I can use?
Well, yeah.
Sorry, I got sidetracked for just a second. Sorry, I was trying to get back to my phone. But you're saying that they use the convention of the speed of light to calculate a distance.
Yeah.
Is that what you said, Brian? Okay, so there is some rate that they're using, and it does seem to be accurate enough that we can use it to use laser rangefinders.
What's accurate?
So there is a
enough?
rate.
No, just clarify that point. What's accurate enough? The speed of light or the two-way speed of light?
The two-way. And I'm not arguing. See, that's the thing. I'm not arguing that we know the one-way speed of light. That's not what I'm arguing. There is a rate of when the laser leaves the rangefinder, hits the wall, and returns. There is a rate there. And you guys keep saying there is a rate. You know, and the thing says the manufacturer, the one that you showed, says that they use time, which is a rate. So I mean, I don't know why.
No, they use the distance over time, Paul. They use distance over time. Paul, I've showed in the past. I made a video where I showed in the past where you can completely change the claimed speed of light, two-way speed of light calculation, and and in reality, there'll be. I mean, completely change it. Break it down to a much smaller speed over time calculation, and this in reality the difference would be so minute we wouldn't even notice it. So it's about like how fast is 671 million miles per hour? I mean, it's not that it's accurate, it's that it's so fast that it's like claiming that it's accurate is ridiculous. We can break that into 1/4 of that speed and we'll still have what we think is inaccuracy. It makes no difference.
Well, and that's my. But see, this is okay. Then you're just making an argument for me, which I made earlier. I said we may not know the exact down to the minute, whatever you want to give it. We don't know that. We don't know the one-way speed of light, but there is a rate of light travel from the laser when it hits something and returns. There is a rate there, and we use that rate to determine distance. That cannot be disputed.
But a rate automatically infers that there is a speed. I mean, what's the evidence that there's actual transversing?
Exactly.
No, but what's happening, Paul, is the sensor on the opposite side of the lens is sensing when the laser hits something, right? It's spotting when the laser hits something, and it's working off of a calculation in trigonometry after that. There is no. Can you prove to me that? Hang on 1 second. Can you prove to me that your laser finder is hitting a wall and directly bouncing back into that other lens? No, you can't.
Okay,
you don't know what's happening when you don't know what's happening when that red dot.
I can prove it real simply, Brian. I can prove it real simply.
No, all you can. You can't do that.
When I pull the trigger, I see it hit my eye. I see it when it hits the wall. The light hits my eye.
Yeah.
It obviously is coming back at me because I can see the light hitting my eye when it comes back.
But you don't see it hit the wall.
And you have an assumption of travel. That's what you have.
We're back to this again.
Exactly.
So,
you don't see it hit the wall.
Well, it doesn't travel, but there's a rate. And I've said this earlier. There is a rate of something. If you want to argue it's not traveling, that's fine. But there is a rate of something that's moving.
No, Paul, you're missing the point. You have no evidence of a rate.
Okay, then
there's no measurement.
So
you have.
Okay, we're going around in circles. Have fun, guys. We're going around in circles.
Yeah, Paul. No, the same happened the last time Paul was in here with the same issue. There is no evidence of a rate. There is a laser that appears on the wall. You don't know how fast it got there, or if it got there with time. If it took a travel distance, you don't know that. The laser ranger is referencing this dot. That it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's recognizing that dot turned up, and then it's working off of a calculation. It would work exactly the same whether there was a speed of light or there wasn't a speed of light. Whether light traveled or didn't travel, the ranger finder could do the exact same thing. All it has to do was register. That's the word. All it has to do was register, right? That dot hit the wall, and time it. That's all it has to do. It's a timing. I mean,
and it only works for a mile.
I can't say
it only works for a mile anyway.
Timing of what?
What are you timing?
What is it measuring? A timing of what?
Of the emission to the collection. Okay, which is a two-way distance. So out to the object, right? This is the time that's going to be measured in the assumption we're making. Yeah. That this has a path. So it's that time there and back. The two-way speed is what we're measuring. Now,
well, you actually, Brian, you and Brian, you guys need to get on the same page because
no, we
you're
don't.
contradicting
I'm
Brian.
perfectly allowed independent thought. I'm still trying to understand.
I know, but
what
I agree with. I agree with you, Adam.
We're
but
not
Brian
reading the
seems to
same
disagree
book
with me
here.
Arwen and Neil, can you not hear him
Chill.
talking?
Chill. I'm just still, Paul. I'm not sure the point you're trying to make. So can I just ask you, just this, what is the nuance you're making here? Because you can see I agree with you that we've got a two-way speed of light that we're utilizing that as a constant in this. That we're able, I can see that I think the device, the way it describes itself, is it's able to differentiate the difference between pressing the button and receiving the light. It's accurate enough to make measurements off that and then do the calculations, however that's done. So with that concession, if you want it in mind, what's your point, your nuance for consideration?
Well, I'm just going by what's been said. Okay, I've heard it on the ether guy saying light doesn't travel. I've heard Nathan say the same thing, which means if light doesn't travel, that means is it instantaneous? It doesn't travel,
Yes.
which means as soon as I turn it on, it's hitting the wall. But if it's instantaneous, how can you measure anything with it? Can't be measured
because it has a diffraction rate of the distance.
You can't measure any time-based
Can we have one person answer? Excellent question, Paul. Thank you. Paul, John, go ahead.
The light is changing over distance. The beam is widening. You can measure those things and calculate it and correlate it to time, but you don't directly measure concepts. You don't, like with a clock, there's springs and things in there that are working according to the laws of nature.
No. Sorry to cut you off. This is the key detail. I don't want it to turn into an analogy. So you're saying that in terms of the way that the light comes out, it's the way it's increasing in intensity or diverging from completely straight, that you can correlate with the time that process happens, and that's how you can derive it when you get the return signal. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and then you just correlate that to time with the calculation, and you can get your distance or whatever, because that's known for each distance.
I think Paul's arguing. In terms of the one-way, Paul, is that what your issue is? Is it the same thing? Because we seem to be talking about paths. I don't know if there's a path for the one-way. I know there has to be a path if I'm going to catch it on the way back. I want it there. I want it to have known, for it to have done something. So there'll be a time with that. But fundamentally, I can't work with a one-way. Technologically, it's not doable by me, is it? I cannot measure it that way. Now, I can make the assumption it's the same. I'm just dividing by 2, but is it? So I can't say that because I can't demonstrate it. I can see that sometimes light has a path, sometimes it doesn't. I can demonstrate that. But this ultimately is a piece of technology working on the convention of the two-way speed of light. Makes no claim about one way, makes no claim about paths, but it is accurate enough for me to measure a tabletop.
Okay.
Well,
is that the conclusion? Hold on, let's just let Paul have the last word, and then hopefully this will get concluded. Go on, Paul.
Well, I mean, obviously there's seems to be some kind of sort of path. I mean, whether you say there's no path or something, but there does seem to be some sort, because I can look at the emitter on my laser and I can look at the wall, and it does seem to be maybe a little bit wider than that, but there does seem to be something emitting from one and hitting something else. So you can say there's no path, there is some kind of path or whatever, but it does seem something is occurring. Okay.
Sure.
And I would agree with Adam that it's the two-way that's being measured. It's not the one-way. I'm not saying it's 100% accurate. I'm not saying that at all. But to say there's no speed in this light, then the device would not work according to the way the manufacturer said they made it. If it's instantaneous, which means no speed at all, it could not function according to the manufacturer.
Let me throw something at you, Paul. Yeah, why not? Well, let me throw something at you, right? The two-way claimed speed of light, right? 671 million miles per hour, or 76, whatever, thousand. That's based on the pre-assumption of a vacuum. You don't live in a vacuum. So if it's using that calculation, and it is, then that calculation cannot be correct for you being in air, even within the claim of the light traveling a distance. Do you understand?
Well, let's analyze that statement. We don't live in a vacuum, which is true. We don't live in a vacuum. Okay, according to the understanding of how light works, what is the rate of speed? How much of a difference is it in a vacuum and in an atmosphere? How much of a difference is it?
Whatever they decide to calculate it as. That's the point. It's all a calculation. It's not a measurement.
But this is all two-way, guys.
Is it 3%?
Yeah, and two-way,
is it 2%
exactly.
different? Is it 0.9, not 0% different? What's the difference?
It depends on what they would decide it to be.
There's no measurement.
Paul, just give me a minute.
Okay.
We seem to be assuming that the light will behave exactly the same. Yeah? If, we just fire it off on one path and we can see a dot on the wall. Yeah? And we're saying that the light will behave exactly the same if I've got the sensor switched on. So, and that's the only way I can measure it is with the sensor. So I've just got to assume everything is even. Now, I think within quantum mechanics, we can make that statement that measuring, detecting can affect light. So I can't make the statement that that one-way behavior is the same path as the two-way. Cannot. In fact, I've got experimental evidence that would suggest the second I start trying to detect it, different things happen. What I have got is the certainty that that piece of technology works. That's, to me, what I haven't got is a description of the path mechanism one way.
Right. Because if you shine light on anything other than a mirror, the light that comes off it will be slightly different in some way. Right. Also, if you're going to measure some kind of a speed, you're going to be dependent on electronics. So are they really going to keep up with instantaneity, or are they not going to keep up with it? And basically, you're measuring the speed of how fast the electric equipment can actually detect something.
No,
right?
I'm suggesting that. Well, yeah, but I'm suggesting that it only has a speed and a position when I want it to have one. Okay, so if I'm just shining the laser at the wall and looking at that light, nice, yeah, and there is no just a separate laser, there is no return speed to measure because I'm not measuring it. It's only when I need to measure it that it will actualize. Yeah, so it's when the sensor's on, then maybe there is a speed that I'm reading. With what I know about quantum mechanics, does that give me any certainty to think that there's a speed on the way there? Or even a speed on the way back until I try to measure it, until I try to give it a fixed position to measure it.
If it actually has a speed, there should be a difference in arrival time. And that should be very distinctly measurable.
No,
it isn't.
Missing the point. I just said,
yeah,
it's only when you're measuring it that you'll get what you're saying. If you're not measuring it, does that happen? No, we've got experimental evidence that maybe it doesn't.
Well, there's always
leads to the same thing then. If you're going to measure it, it's not going to actually give you the measurement. It's going to change what it is. So then you can't. You couldn't even measure it even if you wanted to.
Well, there's two things you can take away from this. Either it's not a concept and you can measure it, or you can measure concepts. Is that what I'm hearing is the position we're going to have to take now?
You measure the two-way speed.
I want to go back. Can I get back in? I want to get back in. I got to go here in a second. Okay, I want to go back to what I said when I first came in. I'm going to retrace all the way back. Measurement, all measurement is conceptual at one level, okay? But we're trying to quantify the physical world with measurement. Length, width, depth, whatever. And even time is a form of measurement. You can use it. You can say it's from solar noon to solar noon, but you're measuring two different points to quantify something, right? So yes, I'm not trying to reify the concept, but I can use the concept to try to quantify what I see in reality. Okay. And also when you say there's a difference between a vacuum or air or a mirror and a wall, to say there's a difference. So you remember what I said about time? It's a measure of change, or even when you're measuring something, you measure from one point to one point, another point. That's a change. You have to quantify it to say, in this case, it's this way, but in this case, it's this way. That's why I asked the question. If it's a vacuum this speed, then you should be able to quantify and say, well, it's this speed in air. If my device is always used in air and not in a vacuum, then that speed can be quantified in air.
Yeah, but they do.
But you have to measure it.
Hang on, let me answer Paul. There is such a thing as the speed of light through air, but that is also a calculation. It's also all based on the average distance of a globe Earth to its heliocentric sun over a 12-month period. There is one. What
well,
you're
let me tell you about
exist,
calculation.
but it doesn't matter because it's still just a calculation.
It's a model.
My wife does calculations all the time. Hold on a second.
Sorry,
hold
Paul,
on a second. My wife does calculations. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. My wife does calculations all the time.
And Arwin, you've interjected into this and made it a three-way conversation, and now it's turning into a cluster screw.
Well, I want to say right quick before you say something back, Arwin. Can you measure a concept? That's really what this comes down to, because the citation that Brian brought up that showed the angles said that it was measuring time. And that's what he brought up as, like, told me that, my citation wasn't backing me. So can you measure a concept?
No, you can't. They're starting off with the pre-assumption of 671 million miles per hour, and that's what they're starting off with. That's their starting point, which we know with our actual starting point is the pre-assumption that Kepler's anime is correct, and there's a particular distance between a globe Earth and a heliocentric sun over a 12-month period changing. That's what it all comes down to. It all comes back to the black swan. If the Earth is not a globe, then if the Earth is globe, there'll be a geometric horizon. There isn't a geometric horizon, the Earth is not globe. So it all goes out the window with the black swan. That debunks any cubic speed of light measurement claims. You can use the calculation.
Okay, I want to ask one simple question. Is a duration a concept?
Yeah, but you by saying duration, you're begging the question.
Okay, is there a duration between our conversation when I started about an hour ago? Is there a duration of something occurred between the time I came in to now?
Yes, you can qualify you can qualify that with the concept of time. Yes.
Yes, and I can use time to quantify that duration.
Yeah, but try adding a speed to it. What speed did it all occur at?
How fast did we all go?
It depends. I can tell you. I can tell you how fast we went. It depends on the rate of words. How many words per minute in that duration can say how, so to speak, how fast this conversation went by the duration of our words.
You get an overall average.
No, that's hold on, Brian. No, that's fine. So yeah, but by saying that, you've massaged it into the convention so that it works.
Well,
that's
here's
fine.
the thing, though. Remember, it's in all duration is in relationship to something. Even measurement is in relationship to something. And I was going to say, my wife does calculations all the time. That's what she does. That's what she does for a living. She'll say, okay, this wall is 3 feet long. I need to put a cabinet at the end that's 5 feet long. Well, how big does that space need to be? It's 5 feet. She calculated it. She added. It's called addition is calculation. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're quantifying the physical world. There's nothing wrong with calculation.
The only problem comes with our very limited understanding of light when you give it an actual journey. When the convention for time has been, as Brian just described, what's the word?
Averaged.
I was going to say incorporated into the methodology of the convention that you've managed to shoehorn what your wife does in quite nicely. But it doesn't mean that you can shoehorn in a journey for light itself into that convention, because you can't.
Okay, so
let me say something.
when the laser leaves my emitter and hits the wall, what's
one at a
happening
time.
there? The light didn't travel there.
Paul's the one leading this conversation. Just let him. Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, I'd say something after.
Okay, so what I hear Nathan saying is this: when I pull out my laser finder and I hit the wall with it, when I shoot it and it hits the wall over there, that light did not travel or have a journey or take a path from the laser emitter to the wall, and somehow it didn't leave, hit the wall, and come back to my eye or come back to the laser finder. Now,
yes,
if it didn't take a journey,
in the most, yes, let's just answer that. Yeah, in the most literal sense, no. That you're getting me to say it in the negative, so I'll say it in the negative. No, you can't describe it as having a path and a journey. And what John has tried to explain is that how things like, let's say you're firing it at the plate, right? You've got a photographic sensor or a plate. How long it takes for that interaction to occur, you can qualify. And that interaction has occurred because you've fired some light at it. And then you can take that interaction and give that as a divisible over a period in time and still have it work within the convention. Therefore, everything's legit. But you step outside of the convention the moment you say, well, in that case, the light came out of the end of the torch and whistled as it walked along a certain amount of path till it hit the photographic plate and then turned around, walked back again into my sensor, because it took this amount of time for my sensor to register the difference on the plate. That doesn't mean light had a path or a journey.
So, Paul, what I have to say to you makes sense.
Hold on a second. So what he's saying is, somehow when that thing turned on, all of a sudden particles on the other wall emitted something. And all of a sudden, they didn't travel from the wall to my eye. All of a sudden, inside my eyes, they just lit up, and I can see it.
No, you saw the light's interaction with something. So in the same way as the sun comes up over the horizon and reflects off a flower, and it absorbs all the various different spectrums of light, other than the one that you're going to see. I forget how that works, but whatever. When that process occurs, there's a period that you can measure a duration for that happening, right? But does that mean that the light, as it went from the horizon, from the sun to the flower and then to your eye, travelled along a path that you could time in that? No, you couldn't. But how long it took for the absorption of the light into the flower, that could be timed. Do you know what I mean?
Well, see, I thought about this because
let me make this example to you.
Hold on a second.
Can I be please part of this conversation?
You could, if there wasn't already two people talking.
You
could make it
over.
four-way,
So
maybe
not-
five-way. Maybe
okay,
then everyone will get heard if we all talk at once. Yeah, good. Yeah, Paul.
Okay, so then what I hear, if I hear what Nathan is saying is correct, then somehow when the light is emitted from whatever source it is, there is a rate from when that light hits it that it's somehow retransmitted or reflect, whatever term you want to call. There's a delay there on the wall somehow. There's a delay there. So when I'm here, the delay either in the wall is changing. That's what it sounds like. So that's not what you're saying.
So if you look at modern stuff, there is the potential that in the two-way speed of light, some of the critique could be. What we don't account for is basically absorption and reemission of a photon at the atomic scale. So as you absorb that energy, it's actually a different photon. Yeah. So there's considerations there. This is all in the two-way, trying to figure out what is going off and is it the same as the one-way? But is it? It's like I said, even in reflection, is it just bouncing? Is it? Or is it at an atomic level being absorbed and re-emitted? So there's a million things that if you're trying to give this photon a time and a place, yeah, you're gonna, as we've shown experimentally, change what maybe is happening in reality.
Well, see that gets back to quantification again. So even in your argument or Nathan's argument, rate of absorption and readmission in an object. Okay, I guess I can't respond. Go ahead.
No, because do you agree with that?
I mean, I don't deny that there could be some delay between the light being emitted and hitting the wall and coming to my eye, and that
No,
when when the light hits the wall. Hold on. Okay, can I finish?
No, because that's not the point I want you to do. Do you
What do you
recognize
make
that
of
if we try to give it a position and time, we create a difference. We force it to have a position and time, yeah?
Well, I mean, whenever you're doing anything in the world, you're kind of like, if I move my position, I'm forcing the molecules in my body to do certain things. So, in one level, yeah, you're right.
No,
I mean,
as the
because when you
observer,
interact in the real world, you cause things to change. Things change in the real world when you interact with it, and I don't deny that. And at the quantum level, I don't disagree with that either.
so the
You know what I mean?
sensor,
So
the sensor's gathering knowledge, isn't it?
but what knowledge is it gathering?
So the light's got to render for you, to me. Okay? The light's being asked to be in the place that you're detecting it. Now, that then gives us a constant in reality. That's if we're detecting light, this is how it behaves. And I'm happy with that, detecting light in a two-way speed with sensors, that we can use that as a fairly constant thing. I recognize that historically, it isn't actually a constant. There are obviously different variables that can tweak it. Yeah. But for the purposes of using it as a laser measuring device, the margin of error is insignificant in terms of the consistency that a two-way speed of light when I'm using the detector provides. But that's not to say any of that has anything to do with the one way, on whether or not the one way has a path.
I've got to go. I got a call. I'll be right back. I'll be back later.
Okay.
Okay. The reason I disappeared earlier, one of my amps has failed again. So long-time watchers of the show will know that I've got some fairly old amps that were horrendously expensive when I first got them when I was a rep and had lots of money. And I've subsequently repaired them because they were worth repairing, right? But each time they go, they cost about 500 quid to get fixed. I've currently got one in repair, and the guy who's repairing it has lost his wife in the last 6 months. So she's died, and he's less focused on fixing amps as you'd understand him to be. But that means I'm without my spare, and one of the two amps that I use and need to run the show has started to fail. So just literally while I disappeared and you're like, can I talk? Can I talk? I was hoping one of you would, because I was trying to film it so I could show the full. I managed to get it just by running a sign suite through it in the end. But I published that to my members just to show. It's just sod's law, isn't it? You get round one corner. I've had no water for days and days and days on end. And then we just had taps fitted today. So what happens the minute everyone's rejoicing that we've got not hot, but cold water? Running water is, I'll take it, right? I'm happy with my running water. And then one of the amps fails. And it's just a bloody irritation, because they constantly seem to be failing now. You get one back from repair, and then 2 weeks later, one of the other ones will go. So I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. I can't keep throwing 500 quid a time at repairing these amps. It's just ludicrous. Anyway, I just wanted to announce that very irritating, frustrating part of running a show when you need things like amplifiers. There we go. Such is life. I just wanted to moan about it, basically.
Can I just bring it back on track a little bit? I listened to the whole show.
Let's stay on amplifiers. I'm very upset. Go ahead.
I listened to the whole show, the live show, and Nathan was basically destroying the concept of time. And he was comparing and contrasting how time does and does not do a variety of things, ramming home the point that it's conceptual. It's both abstract and conceptual. It doesn't influence anything, but the passage of time obviously exists. We all age, and we can call that a variety of things, entropy, aging, whatever. But time itself is indeed conceptual. It doesn't influence anything. But you can interchange the word time with the word mathematics, because that's like exactly the same. You can ask anybody to calculate something and they can come up with an answer. And you can argue about how accurate it might be. But it's still, by definition and by practical application, even though it doesn't have any practical application, it is still conceptual. It is both abstract and conceptual in the same way that time is. Now, and right now I can feel Adam's cringing because he likes maths. And I have a general disdain towards maths because I see it as a substitute for experiment. I don't see it as the be all and end all like Red's rhetoric does, where he says maths is reality. I recognize and accept that maths is both abstract and conceptual in the same way that time is. Yeah, it has its uses. You can work out how much money you need for the shopping and all that kind of stuff, the basics. But beyond the basics, what real use does it have in this topic? And in my opinion, for me, it has no use. In the same way that time can't be an independent variable, mathematics can't be a substitute for anything practical either. But I just wanted to point out time and mathematics. They're basically interchangeable in that whole conversation that Nathan had about time, and we should recognize maths is the same. I'm done.
Yeah, lawyers know about maths when it comes to billing you, though, don't they? Because a unit of time with a very large number next to it, it's going to be put down somewhere, isn't it? Then they know all about the maths. I've noticed that.
You'll still have. That's correct.
A lawyer's time is very expensive.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is Anthony and other lawyers that I've known have said that they're not good with maths. And if you just go on LawTube, anybody on YouTube that's talking about law aspects, they'll all say, "Oh, we're no good at maths." Like, you are when it comes to your bill. Then your maths is sharp.
It's not that I said that I was no good at maths. I just have a disdain towards it because it's used to substitute for a lot of things instead. Like, so when we ask for evidence of blah 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 blah, often how many times do they come up with a mathematical expression? So, like, for instance, gravity, right? They'll always come up with F equals ma. Now, although F equals ma may well calculate out, and it may well give you the answer that you would get if you had the thing that you're actually asking for, which is the thing that's pushing the thing that you want to see, the thing that's pushing the thing that's moving, right? You don't want to calculate the rate of the acceleration of the mass. You want to see the thing that's pushing it. So I'm not asking for how fast it takes for the tow car to tow you home. I'm asking for the proof of the tow car, right? But how often do you get maths to substitute for the answer instead of actually the thing, the actual, like the Cavendish experiment, the equivalent of that? Show me that experiment, and obviously there isn't one. There's only this one, like Cavendish is the one that they will all cite, but they'll often substitute that for mathematics instead. And it's like, well, that's not real world, is it? And in the same way that time's not. So it's not really whether or not you're good or bad at it. It's just whether or not it even applies. And for me, it doesn't. Now, Adam might disagree with that. I mean, what do you think, Adam? Does mathematics apply in this topic at all?
Depends how you're using it, doesn't it? If I'm trying to prove G by F equals ma, then it's not a very accurate description of the real world. As you're saying, what's pushing it? What's the description derived from? The description's derived from somebody's idea, right? So the maths is next to useless in that trying to describe reality. It doesn't do a very good job, and therefore it gives no explanation. But if I want the mathematics so your missus can figure out if she's got enough money for the shopping, it will be 100% accurate because it is fully describing the reality you're using it in and the application that it can be applied to. What it can't do, a little sum on your shopping this week, is tell you whether or not that chicken's going to be tasty that you bought. Yeah, the maths doesn't account for that. So it depends where you use it and what you're using it to make a claim for. If I'm going to claim that you've got enough money to buy the shopping, all the things you've listed, I could do it and it'll be accurate. If I want to claim that it's describing reality, I've got to give a really accurate description. And FMA doesn't describe reality; it describes somebody's imagination backwards.
Hang on a sec. Let's just challenge that, because you just said then if I was to do the maths to see whether or not you can afford the shopping, it'll be accurate. Will it?
Yeah.
100%. Are you sure?
As long as the input information is correct.
But even so, does that mean just because you've calculated whether I'm short by £1, just because you calculate that, does it actually mean that I'm short by £1 in real life?
Yeah, because it's real life that you're putting into it. This is the point. The data I'm going to put in is the cost of the things and how much money you've got. The two real life
you get
things.
To the store.
Yeah.
Unless you get to the store and there's a sale.
But that has no bearing.
So therefore, I can put another bit of maths into that to account for that new information.
Sure.
And this is what I'm saying. It's only as accurate as the reality it describes. So if I get to the store and I've not described the discount, then it's not very good, is it?
No, but that doesn't mean that you have or have not got the money to pay, because it's fundamentally different to calculate.
Because the input, when I said have you got enough money? I've asked you, not just pulled it out the air from another sum. For it to be of any use, the maths I use has to be derived from reality. So how much money have you got, Tony?
I've got a tenner.
Right, lovely. So now if your shopping comes to £9, yeah, or I tell you what, it comes to 11, and we're going to get 10% discount. So you've got 10p spare.
Oh, do you know what, Adam? I thought it were a tenner, but when I've opened my wallet, it's actually a fucking fiver.
Oh, well,
Shit.
there we go. So the maths was incorrect. We described reality incorrectly. It wasn't the maths that was incorrect. It was our perception of what the reality was.
No, but here's the difference, though. I only actually had a fiver, right? And I thought I had a tenner, so I didn't have enough to get the stuff that I wanted, right? But mathematically, the sums were right. I weren't going to get the stuff. No, the sums were right. I was going to get the stuff, but in real world, I made a mistake and I got it wrong. I only had a fiver. I ain't getting my shit, right? But that's the problem with mathematics. When we're talking about something that's physical, tangible, real world, that's not in dispute, we can all agree that if you've only got a fiver, you're not getting your thing for a tenner. We can agree on that because it's not in dispute.
No.
But when it comes to something conceptual like gravity, or when we're calculating other things in the pseudoscience that they apply, which is like the globe earth science, right? We're talking about stuff that is contentious, that we do disagree about, yet they'll use mathematics because it works when we're going to the till to calculate our shopping bill. Because it works there, they transpose that so it works in the conceptual world of Narnia that they describe, and therefore it's credible, reliable, and it's repeatable because you can't challenge mathematics. Well, you can challenge the substance that you're applying the mathematics to, which is what we try and do. So you're right, the maths does apply, but only if it's true and not in contention for the thing that we're talking about in the first place. Then it doesn't apply at all.
The maths doesn't pay for the bill. The money pays for the bill. So it's the reality of where the maths is useful to you. Yeah?
It's in my experience, it's used as a substitute for experiment or evidence or proof that is like F equals MA is the best example because like they calculate it as though it's a thing and it's not a thing. Like show the thing, not the calculation, show the actual thing itself. Oh, well, we got Cavendish. Yeah, but that's not even the defined term for gravity, is it? So like immediately the subject matter becomes contentious. And then where does the mathematics apply in that? And it clearly doesn't. Now, when you recognize that the Newton's laws of motion, and like Newton's first law, second law, third law, they're descriptive, right? And they seem to apply, generally speaking. But it doesn't make it authoritative in the sense that it's not 100% right. It's not accurate. And also, just because you can calculate it doesn't mean you know what's causing it. That's the bit that bugs me. So, like, people use mathematics like as a flip between the two positions, as though it's perfectly normal. And the minute someone introduces mathematics, I see that as saying, well, I haven't got the gun that killed the body, right? I haven't got the murder weapon, but I can calculate the trajectory of the bullet and I can tell you how far away he was. And I'm like, what's use of that unless you got the gun? You need the gun. I don't want to know how far away he was when he fired it. I don't want to know how fast the bullet was going. I don't want to know what bullet it was. I want the gun. That's the bit that's the issue. And that's the bit that I take issue with when anytime maths is brought up, because I just see it as littered with like fraught with error in my experience.
That's causal. Maths doesn't give you cause.
Correct.
The cause of you having to go to the shops is because you're hungry and you'll starve to death otherwise.
So what does maths give you if it doesn't identify the cause? What does it give you?
It can give you detail. What in science? Very little directly, because it's not quantity we're after, is it? We're not after, yeah. We're after a qualitative effect. So it doesn't in that sense. But I suppose from that and from understanding, it gives you accuracy for technology, for medicine, for things like that. But that's not giving you understanding of cause and effect, is it? But it's giving you mastery in the real world.
Covered this already. Gives you the size of the bill.
Well, yeah, the use of math is like a. Sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
No, Chocolate, you go ahead. I'll go after.
I was gonna say, like, the use of math, right, as a language is kind of like, it's like yielding a weapon, right? You could use a sword to defend, or you could use a sword to attack. Right?
It's more like using a weapon that you haven't got, but you act as though you have got the weapon. But I see it as I see it as pulling out Timmy Mallet's. Remember Timmy Mallet's magic fucking yellow and pink thing that he used to whack everybody over the head with? That's what, when someone pulls maths out, that's what I see them coming out with. They're coming out with one of those soft foam hammers that they're acting as though it's an Uzi, but actually it's nothing. But they think they've got an Uzi. And I'm like, you just spinning out maths to me, dude. That doesn't show me what's causing the thing that you're calculating. And that's what science is all about. But they think it's an Uzi. And they're sat there spraying around thinking that they're killing everyone in the room. And I'm looking at them going, you haven't got a gun, mate.
If the Earth is a ball, then the distance to the horizon can be no more than 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That's maths.
Yeah. And that's geometric maths. And I don't have a dispute with geometry. Geometric relations are fine. The issue is when you substitute the mathematics in lieu of the experiment detail that's being required to prove the point.
Hold on. You've missed Adam's point. What Adam's saying is, right, if I'm going to tell you how long a football field is, and I give it you in yards, so that you can take that blueprint that's not something that exists in physicality and transpose the numbers onto a building and create a football pitch, right? That's you taking the numbers and putting them into practical application, right? But if you take the reverse of that, which is to say that you suggest that the numbers that you're offering are in relation to a physical measurement of a geometric horizon, then you've hoodwinked somebody into believing that their measurement, that's something that does exist tangibly in physical reality and can be applied in physical reality, as something that isn't actually real being measured. Now, the not actual real bit is the Earth curve bit. The what you can see and what they're claiming to measure is the horizon. But that little bait and switch is where they're offering you something that seems to have a place in physical reality with a description that's being offered up for useful application in maths. But in reality, it has no useful application because it isn't a real measurement.
Yeah.
My amps are broken.
You know that second picture of that tap that you showed in the thingy chat, Nathan? It was very, very phallic. Just pointing that out. You got a big, massive penis on your sink.
My wife picked that. No, actually, I picked that. I picked the. Do you mean the tall one that's got like a spring on it?
Yeah. No, the one that's in the small sink. Like it's very big.
My wife picked that. Yeah, the other one's the one I picked. The one with the bendy spring, I picked. The one that you say looks like a penis. My wife.
Yeah, that's the one that's more aesthetically pleasing on the eye. I can see that you would have picked that. But the phallus-looking one, it wouldn't surprise me that it was the missus that picked it.
That's the most irritating part, right? You just get past stuff being bust, and you're like, I can breathe easy. My computer's finally working. It's not crashed for a couple of days, and I do mean a couple of days. And, you know, I'm relatively relaxed in the show. I can go and wash my hands, things like that. That's nice. Then your amp breaks. You're like, I'm cursed. Why does stuff keep breaking? Oh, it's just so irritating.
Second law of thermodynamics, that, Nathan.
It is, it's entropy. But I've got one in repair. The normal way of things, right, in this room is that there's 5 speakers. 3 of them basically never work. Because what I'm doing is I'm shuffling around the other amplifiers to keep the 2 speakers that I actually need to run the show working. Now, currently, that's not a problem because one's in repair and I've got a spare channel on the other amp. But I don't have any other spare channels. So now that I've got one in repair and another one's broken, I'm back to that awkward position where I haven't got enough amps to run the 2 big speakers. That's really frustrating.
So Nathan, if we calculate how much it costs for you to get your amp repaired, let's just say
I'm not
for
going to do
argument's
it.
sake,
I'm not
it's
doing it.
500
No, I've already decided. I spoke to my wife about this about a month ago. I said next time they break, I'm not repairing them. I'm just not doing it. I'm not going to throw another £500 at something that lasts 6 months.
If we assume that you are going to repair it and we calculate it as if you're going to repair it.
I've had enough pain with them. I've just already decided. The last one.
This is an ice cream moment. Let him.
It is. So just bear with me, Nathan. Just shut up a minute, right? If we pretend that you are going to repair it and we calculate the bill as though you're going to repair it and we can present the estimate of the bill as if it's done, does that mean that you've had it done?
No. But tangibly, I could then offer the amount described with numbers in silver pieces that I have to hand over to the guy for his time that he spent turning screws on it. Yeah, so all these things are qualified in physical reality, aren't they, Anthony? Within the conventions that were used to describe them. The duration that he spent turning the screws was described as time and was qualifiable in the duration of how many sunrises and sunsets took place during him turning the screws.
I'm just grateful that Adam recognised it was an ice creams moment while Nathan's arguing whether or not he's actually getting it fixed or not.
I did recognise it was an ice cream moment. I knew what you were doing, but as you didn't hear and Adam say it, Adam recognised that I just need to moan about this.
Yeah, I do. It was just a lovely parallel that was running along.
I seen both of those things happen. I was like, Nathan's trying to complain and Anthony's trying to make an example. It's like, this is not going to work.
No, it was a synergy. It was a perfect synergy. It was working. It was beautiful.
I'd already done it. So the other one, just let me get this last bit off my chest. So the other one I'd already sold. So once it broke, I was like, that's it. I've had enough of it. And then I replaced it. And then sold it for next to nothing, which was heartbreaking because it was worth several £1,000s working, and it was like spending endless amounts of money, chucking money at it to find that it lasts no time at all was stupid. So I'm like, no, it's basically junk. It'll go on eBay as a junk item, which it did. And I'm going to do the same with this. It's good money after bad. There are certain things that you can repair, that you repair them, and fundamentally they work for another 5 years. And then if they go again, you repair them, and then the same thing happens, right? But there's other, like with cars, there are certain cars that you go, it's just another £500. It's just another and you keep spending £500. And with 3 amps that constantly seem to cost £500 a pop when they pop, is just, you've got to draw a line somewhere. And I've just decided I'm not going to repair it. I'm just going to replace it. If it means running go on.
Can I just ask you a techie question? It's a genuine question. Do you not put your amps and your electrical gear through a surge protector? Because it seems that you might be getting dirty power going to it, and that might be causing the problem.
No, it's not what's happening. What's happening is the custom output FETs are dying. So because this is an ongoing, it's the same fault. I've had this fault dozens of times because there's 3 amps. Each of them have probably been in for repair with the same thing happening to them each time, probably about 3 times each. There was 4 amps. Now there's only 3. As I say, I've sold one of them. For peanuts. Anyway, they keep having the same problem. The FETs start to die, and then there's a protection circuit that won't let them just blow your speakers up, and that's got a little relay. And what's happening is the relay cuts in and out really quickly, and you can hear it going, and then suddenly it stops working as the relay actually engages, cutting the amp. So then you don't have any sound. So then you go from, oh, that sounds a bit weird. Is somebody on the panel distorting? That's the worst part of it, because initially when it starts to happen, I think it's a problem with you, you guys on the panel. And then by the time I've figured out that it's not, it stops working. The relay either closes or opens, whichever way around it is. And then I don't get any sound. So then I've got to jump up and figure out what the hell I've got to do to get sound working again, which is a pain in the ass. Anyway, it's just something I want to moan about. I'll flog them for junk, and I'll have to do a GoFundMe or something to raise the money to replace them. For what I think I'll do is, the replacement value, I'll buy amps that cost the same as the stupid repair. In other words, I'll find some amps that cost about 500 quid and just replace them with them instead of spending 500 quid repairing them. Now, the fact that I haven't got a pot to piss in at the moment is absolutely typical, but there we go. That just means I'll have to e-beg for the funds to, instead of repair it, I'll just say, look, I'm going to replace these stupid amps with the amount it would have cost to repair them, and just buy something by comparison that's crap. Not crap, but, just not as good.
Just get a cheap DAC like you told me to get. I've had no problems with my DAC, Nathan. In fact, I've bought 4 more since.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, I'll get amps that are capable of running my speakers that are as cheap as possible for hopefully the same cost as they would have cost to repair. And then I'll stop. Hopefully they'll come with a 2 or 5 year warranty, and I can stop thinking about it every 3 months and circulating amps. Ugh.
Yeah, but to be fair, Nathan, I don't mean to blow my own view.
Trying to talk for like 10 minutes.
I'm done. I'm done. I've got it out of my system. I'm done. But Anthony, if you want to talk about it, that's fine.
No, it's all right. Go on, Brian.
Yeah, it's out of date. Thank you, Chocolate. I'm glad you recognise it. It's out of date now by about 20 minutes, but I'm going to say it anyway. Right?
My bad.
It was supposed to be sent to Paul, right? The difference between maths and measurement is this. Paul talked about his wife, right, using a 3-foot space, right, and talking about putting a 5-foot wardrobe in there, blah, blah, blah. Now, that 3-foot space, we know, is 36 inches. It can never be 18 inches, right? 3 feet will always be 36 inches. 18 inches will always be 1.5 feet. It'll never be 3 feet, right? But you can take the two-way speed of light calculation and cut it in half or quarter it or bring it down even way further than that, and you will get the same result because it's just calculation. And that's the difference. Where one is a measurement, the other is just maths. And I know that it might be of use to us. We might be able to use these things like the rangefinder, blah, blah, blah. But the point is that its whole basis of it is a calculation based on a pre-assumption. There's no okay, we start with the convention of an inch and whatever, we make a foot, 12 of them makes a foot, blah, blah, blah. But in the end of the day, that's something we can actually measure. We can't cut that in half and get the same measurement. It can't happen. But we can get the same result by cutting this two-way speed of light calculation in half. That should have happened 20 minutes ago. Sorry.
Brian, you do realise that you just totally killed the conversation.
Well, yeah, I suppose I did kind of.
No, he didn't. He brought clarity. What was Paul's point anyway?
Well, Paul's point was basically saying if you can use light as a measurement to measure something, Paul's point was that you must be measuring a two-way speed of light. Therefore, a one-way speed of light must still exist. That's what he was saying.
Because of the maths, you see, you've got this maths. You're now trying to use the maths to describe reality. Yeah. And you've got the description from a two-way speed of light. And you're saying, well, if I just do a bit of maths on it, then I've got a new description of the one-way speed. No, you haven't. Stop it.
That's what Paul was saying. That was his point, yeah.
You can't make that leap. I appreciate that. Why the bit and that's just trying to get out is was that his problem? Why you have to make that leap? Because we have evidence that light's funky and it doesn't do that.
Can I clarify what I was trying to say?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. So is that the point? What?
No, I'm not making the argument for the one-way speed of light, first of all. I'm just making an argument there has to be some rate of speed that is being measured. I don't know the one way, don't have to know the one way, but it does seem that there's a speed from the point of origin on the light to the point of being in the receptor. There is some form of speed there. That's all I'm arguing.
The speed between the light, the button being pressed and the sensor being activated. That's the speed you're measuring, isn't it?
Right. That's exactly it. I'm not saying, if you want to get into the minutiae, whatever is going on between the wall and the molecules in the air and the ether, if you want to get into that, that's not the argument I'm making. If you want to make that argument, you can. I'm not making that argument. There seems to be a rate of speed between, what you said, from the laser leaving it till it returns and hits the sensor. There's a rate there. There's a speed there.
But your language is just after begging the question of the rate. That's the problem. He said when the signal goes out and then is returned, travels to and then is returned. That is, you're telling yourself that this thing is happening. That you don't know if that's happening.
Okay.
You don't know if that's happening.
Let me ask you one quick second, Brian. Let me ask you one quick question. Is there an emitter on the laser light? Is there an emitter?
Is there an emitter?
A laser emitter.
Like, does a laser light turn on?
Is there a sensor? Is there a laser that is emitting a laser light? Is there an emitter on there?
Yeah, that's right.
Is there a sensor on the apparatus, on the laser finder?
There was a sensor on the other side of the lens, yeah.
Okay. So light is emitted on one and it hits the other one. There is a rate from which it's emitted to the rate to which it returns and hits the sensor.
No.
But you've done the same thing again.
No.
Your rate that you're measuring is between the activation of the laser and the activation of the sensor. That's what you're measuring.
I agree.
That's the only thing
Adam.
you can state in certainty. Anything you describe it in between, and we certainly can't use mathematics to describe certainly can't use the time that this interval we've measured is. We can't use that to describe anything that happens on between that time period, can we? We can say that time period and we can use it.
Okay, so here, let me. Okay, this I'm gonna bare bones it. Use Adam's words. There is a duration from the time I push the button and the laser leaves the emitter leaves it. Then there's a time interval between when the laser leaves it or when the button is pushed and the sensor goes off. Right?
Yep.
Okay, and it's measuring that duration, correct?
That appears to be how the device is working, yeah.
But that's not correct. It's not measured.
So that's what I said. Okay, that means there's a time interval. There's a time interval.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A duration. Okay, so there's a duration from when the light leaves it to the light comes back. And if I move a position, that interval seems to change. Right?
Right.
Because all of a sudden the reading changes. Right?
Yeah, but Paul, you're forgetting something.
Well, no, he's not. He's not. He's only describing so far. So carry on. Yeah, correct.
Okay, I'll say it in a second.
Okay, so there is a duration, a rate of something occurring, a rate of change, and we quantify it through a clock. So what is changing? The clock is changing. The time interval is changing, but it's giving a reading saying there. Oh, but the thing that is quantifying seems to be distance, because when I move the apparatus, the reader changes time. The distance seems to change. I can move forward. The distance changes. I can move backwards. The distance to change. So you got a rate and distance. Oh, wait a minute. What is that? Rate over distance. What is that?
That's calculation.
Of what?
Of the time that the sensor sees the dot on the wall.
Exactly.
You don't know if that dot, hang on, you don't know if that, like, I'm not saying it hasn't. The point I'm making is you don't know if that dot has traveled from the lens to get to there. You don't know if it was just created at that point, and then the sensor, right, determines the time that it sees the dot, right, it determines the distance, it triangulates off of that. Use a trigonometry to create a distance based off of that time, based off of the calculation that is used for it. That's the point.
Okay, if
you
I have time over distance, what am I calculating?
You've got time.
Okay, what is time over distance? What's time over distance in a calculation? Or time times distance, or whatever.
Time over distance would be.
What is that?
You're talking about rate over. That's a speed, is it?
Oh, so there's another factor in this. There's three pieces.
No. Okay, so here's but what's the problem with speed? Now, if you're gonna say the speed of what? Yeah.
You tell me. What is the speed of? There's a speed involved. You got time over distance.
I don't know, because it's mathematics. I can make assumptions, but the maths can't tell me what it is, can it? All the math is doing is making an assumption for you to use to figure out how far that thing is away. Yeah.
Okay, let's think about it. Let's think about it, Adam. Real simple. There's three things involved in this apparatus.
Yeah.
There's a clock inside. And there seems to be distance involved, because if I move, the distance seems to be the distance seems to be changing. And there's another piece of this equation. What's in this apparatus that's being used, that's being measured?
You keep saying measured.
Just don't let's not play quizzes.
Either measured or something else is using this calculation. It's using something that's like I could go. When I go measure, I go get a tape measure, and I can measure
instead
something.
of doing it as a pub quiz. So just state your claim, because it just confuses.
It's the light. You got time and distance and light.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't know if you've got a travel time of the light. You don't know if the light is traveling. That you don't know. You're pre-assuming the travel. That's the point.
Okay, distance over time indicates what?
calculation.
Okay, if I have so many revolutions per minute on my tire, and I know how big the tire is, I mean, what is, so you're saying a speedometer is it's just a calculator? So the digital odometer on my vehicle is, what is it measuring?
Yeah, but you don't have that on your laser finder. That's the point. You have a way of actual physical measurement with the car. Hang on, just give me a second, Paul. You have a way of actual physical measurement with the car, right? But you don't have that with the laser. That's the point we're making. You have to pre-assume that. And that's the problem. The whole world is of this assumption that the speed of light is being measured, and then it's this speed of light supposed measurement has been accepted as part of our reality when they mix it in with time and general relativity and E equals mc squared, when there's no actual measurement. It's a pre-assumption. It's what they call an Einstein's convention, because he just went along with it. He knew there was no such thing as a measured speed of light. So that's the point, Paul. You have to beg the question within the convention. That's our point. So it's not a measurement.
So is the clock a measurement?
Clock? What is a clock? Does a clock measure or does it show a duration? I don't know. Can you use clock for a measurement? How do you measure
something? What is it measuring?
With just a clock.
What is it measuring? What is the duration of what?
Time, from one point of time to the next. 5 minutes, whatever.
Time.
That's a
duration.
duration.
Time. Right. A clock is a man-made instrument designed to measure a duration in time.
Yeah, it's
just
based
like a tape measure.
A clock is based off of the solar noon, 24 hours.
Shows a rate of change, is what a clock does.
A rate of change of what?
Doesn't measure time, is the point. Doesn't measure time.
Okay.
It shows a rate of change.
Yeah,
of
you measure
convention
time.
of
Use
time.
a clock. You can use a clock. You can use a sun. You can use a sundial. You can use shadows. You can use all kinds of things to measure time. It is a convention.
No, this is the point. You're not measuring time, are you? You're not actually measuring time. You're defining a rate of change.
Okay, that's how I define time. It's a measurement of rate of change. That's how I define it. So what is
the convention of time?
If I define time as a measurement of the rate of change, that when I say time, that is what I'm saying. It is a measurement of the rate of change. So when I say time, that's what I'm saying. A clock is an instrument, a man-made device used to measure that duration and quantify it.
Yep.
But don't we arbitrarily create that device to do just that?
Yeah. It's purpose.
Well, it's a convention, Chocolate. It's a convention. It's like I can create any duration I want. I can say between this point and this point in time, I can give it 5 units or 10 units or 20 units. As long as me and you agree on it, we can quantify reality.
Okay. We've only quantified. If we call your new units John units and these, and I'm sticking with minutes and seconds still, the numbers can be very different. But if we take the amount of time in A, B, for me to say the alphabet, you might have to call it 140 John units. I might call it 60 seconds. The amount is the same. How we describe it is different, but it doesn't matter. It's just a way of describing the rate for us to use in the maths. But it doesn't matter, does it? Because the units will come out the same, and it's just the rate of change is all we're doing. So in this case, we've just to pull it back. We've got this rate, this amount, that we've said. Yeah, when we've pressed the button and the sensor's activated. Okay, and that correlates lovely in reality to distance. Okay, gives us it's not, even if they say it's not accurate, but it gives us very good accuracy for real world purposes. At what point in any of that technology is it necessary? Do we get an explanation out of it? Particularly with regards to one and two-way behaviors of light? And more important, why? Which bit is necessary for you? Which bit are you arguing? Because I'm still lost as to the pertinent point here that you're making. Because I seem to agree with you most of it, but you seem to have an objection that I'm not able to find.
Basically, it's my objection is in the sense of what I hear Brian saying. I think honestly, Adam, I think me and you're more on the same page than everybody else on the panel. I mean, I hear this with the ether guys, and I've heard it on here. There is no speed of light. That's ultimately what they're saying. Now, there's a difference between saying, okay, we don't know the speed of something, than saying there is no speed of something. Those are two
that's
different.
Never what I said. I never said that. What I said is there is no one-way speed of light measurement. That's what I said, just to be clear.
Okay,
which is correct.
That's what you're right. But I'm saying I don't know it, and I've admitted that also, which means you're not listening to me in this whole discussion. I may not know what it is.
That's kind of what he's saying, though. He's saying there's no one-way speed of light measurement. He's not saying there's no speed of light.
Well,
just to clear up what I am actually saying. I'm saying there is no one-way speed of light measurement, which is true. But I am also saying that I don't know if there is such a thing as the speed of light, because I don't know if light travels. I don't know that.
Well, when you
That's
say
the point. I don't know. I can't make claims about stuff I don't know.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. If you say light doesn't travel, so you're coming into a problem. You don't realize.
I said I don't know if it does. I said I don't know if it does.
Okay, well, can I explain? Can I explain why there's a problem if you say that? You can say I don't know. That's fair. I don't know if it does. But if you say it doesn't travel, you said that light does not travel. That means then the distance issue is mute. You just eliminated, like, I go from here to my office, the office where my cubicle used to be. I don't work in an office anymore. But if I go from my office to that location, you're saying I did not travel there. That's what you're saying. Okay, that light doesn't travel. It doesn't go from point A to point B. It doesn't do that.
Hang on 1 second.
That's what you're saying.
I can't say whether light has a duration, a distance, travels a distance or not. I can't say it does. I can't say it doesn't. But what I can say, besides the fact that I can say that the one-way speed of light was never measured, what I can say is that the two-way claimed speed of light is only a calculation, and I can show where that calculation originates and how that the whole basis for the calculation is fraudulent. I can also show with your rangefinder how that laser is designed to come out at a slight angle and be registered by the sensor at the other side of the lens, and I can show how they use trigonometry and the calculation that is fraudulent to calculate a distance. Grand. I'm not saying you can't use it. I'm saying it's not a measurement, and I don't even know if light does travel. That's what I'm saying. So anyone who's claiming that there is a measurement or claiming that it does travel, you're making a positive claim there. How do you support that? That's my point.
They're not measuring distance. They're not measuring. Hold on a second. They're not measuring the distance with a rangefinder by trig.
But they're using trigonometry with the calculation.
No, they're not. Not the distance. I got it. I use one every day. That's not how they work.
How do they work then? Because all the diagrams show us trigonometry.
No. Now I can't. I do use trigonometry because my rangefinder has an angle compensator in it, but that's a different game, right? It's just pulsing out from a laser diode, certain wavelength of light, right? It pulses a bunch of them very quickly, and then it detects them on the other end. There's no trig used in the distance. It's travel time.
Okay, but it's just the diagrams show us a trigonometry function. That's what they showed us in any of the diagrams. It shows us a trigonometry.
I think you got an old rangefinder. Most of the high-speed current ones, they don't do that.
These were basics. These are just the basics of a rangefinder, that laser
right.
rangefinder. So that's what it says.
Yeah. I think it was an older one. I haven't seen it. I'd have to check the one that you had, but the one I got, it's friggin' high speed, low drag. Wish it would help my.
But
next
how
time.
can it be high speed? How can it be a high speed? That doesn't make sense to me. Considering what it's claimed to be doing.
No, I'm sorry. Maybe that was a poor use of military language. High speed, low drag is something else.
That means top notch, Brian, in military language.
Okay.
So what it does, it just pulses out. I think mine, it's probably infrared if I were to guess. I'd have to go search it out. But it makes probably thousands of pulses, right? Banks off the target, and the black targets are a lot of fun. But mine seems to do it very well. So they made a deal with the devil or something. In fact, I just lazed a big old black bear Saturday, a big old black one. I said, how is this even going to work? I was thinking that to myself, isn't the black going to absorb most of this? But it doesn't absorb all of it. And it depends on the sensitivity of the receptor. But it's got a high speed chronometer in it, right? So it's not using trig for that function. Okay. I can add that.
No worries. I can't argue. You know about that. I don't know about that.
I'm not an expert. I can only tell you. I'm not an expert in it. I have a rangefinder. I hold it in my hand, press the damn button, and put the X on whatever I'm trying to get. Right? Now, there's a margin of error. Some rangefinders, like a buddy of mine, he could be standing right beside me and get 2-3 yard difference. Follow?
So there is so they're not all exact then, is what you're saying.
No, by no means. And that depends on the type of rangefinder that you get. And I would guess it's the receiver sensitivity that probably differentiates the other guys from the other guys. I'm just guessing. No, I'm just speculating, Brian.
So if me and you both had tape measures, could one tape measure be faster than the other?
Faster? Tape measures faster?
Yeah. The answer is no. No matter, the only difference maybe you might be able to take your tape measure faster than me, taking out my one, but that doesn't mean that one is faster than the other.
Wait, what about bringing them back, the automatic ones? You pull the button and they come back.
Shut up, Neil. Isn't that Brenda with the fast tape measure? Remember? She can measure how.
I was just going to say that.
Listen to me. Unless you work with a tape measure, you can. You open it up 20 feet, hit the button, and it zips back.
Yeah, but Neil,
by the way.
Well,
okay,
that's called the reverse speed of light.
But
you see what I'm saying, don't you?
I don't know what the argument is. I've been in and out. I could just tell you that the distance is not measured by trig with the new. I'm not going to say high speed with the new rangefinders with the new I haven't studied. I haven't researched the old ones because I just didn't pique my interest. All I can tell you is that the newer rangefinders, they don't use trig for the distance calculation. Only angle compensation for horizontal distance.
Hey, Brian,
okay.
have you ever thought about applying this to a laser that people can etch with from a long distance?
I can't hear you. You're coming in broken up to me. Could you say it again, please?
I was asking. So, have you applied this logic to think about? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. About a laser, right? So there's these lasers you can buy in the store, you can order online, where you can etch into a tree or a piece of metal, even depending on the strength, with the laser. Have you applied the logic or even maybe the conversation to that kind of a laser?
Are you talking about burning like your initials into something with a laser? That's what you're talking about, is it?
Yeah, because when I think of a light traveling and being sent and shot at something, it sounds really aggressive, right? Like somebody shooting photons out my eyes, right? Like it sounds kind of aggressive. But then on the other hand, there is this laser that's pretty aggressive. That when you shoot it, it actually will carve things into objects.
Yeah, well, look, there you go. Maybe that's a good point. Maybe it does show that there is a rate or a distance traveled by the light. I don't know. But on the other hand, how do you know it's not just a build-up of radiative heat at that point caused by the turning on of the laser? If you know what I mean, I don't know.
No one's denying a distance between the laser, whether we're burning something or rebounding off. No one's denying a distance in reality. What I'm raising question to is when you want to define or from that make a path, actual physical path. That's the issue I've got. That appeared to, using that mathematics. That's appears to be from that mathematics that would be, and this was Tony's critique, that is in some way evidence of a path. I don't think it shouldn't be used as such.
What do you mean
Can
make
you
a path?
define what a path?
An actual journey
I was
of
gonna
a
ask that.
particular photon from the emission over to the wall and back into the sensor. An actual physical path that we can time. That is exactly.
You're not timing the path, right? That kind of doesn't make any sense. What do you mean timing the path?
Right. So you're making the timing. That's all you are doing, right? And in doing so, you assume a path has been followed from the emitter to the object back to the sensor.
Oh, so the journey, you're talking about the journey. Is there a journey from that rangefinder to my black bear and then from the black bear back?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, I see what you're saying. You're waxing all philosophical.
Well, my only point is you can't use the mathematics to make that as a statement that there is a path, even though the maths describes one.
Maths?
The maths in the machine that calculates how far away you.
It's not. It doesn't have anything to do about the path. It has everything to do with reception, or emission and receptivity. I don't know where you're going.
I have a problem.
Are you smoking or some kind of peyote or something?
No, you.
Well, no.
somebody pass it.
No, are you, Adam?
Somebody pass it.
Adam, get stuff.
And with that, I'm going to say
Can I
another huge,
ask a
massive,
question?
enormous thank you to both Discord and Jupas panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!